How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses with two of your three favorite show hosts, Ara Still.
And Volasel, and we don't have a Fern today because he is off doing family things, I think. Something like that. That's what it sounded like anyway.
Yeah, it sounded like he had family come in earlier than expected, so he's bowed out.
Yeah, in order to satiate their desire to have his absolute attention. But yeah, we will mush on regardless, and hopefully bring you. Well, we normally start out with the best of intentions to bring you the latest news and news from the games industry for the week. Except that I haven't really seen anything I'm particularly impressed by this week. And for some reason, my social media feed has been filled with like Path of Exile stuff that I don't care about.
Yeah, I'm not paying $30 to
So
buy into a beta, sorry.
yeah. Anyway, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com. You can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw. Or you can join us in the Discord server, which you can get to by clicking on the link provided in the show description underneath the show archive on YouTube.
Yes, indeed. That's okay, though, because this week we have upcoming stuff for Gimshin and stuff that happened in ZZZ we can talk about, and you have a plane ride to talk about.
Well, the plane ride was the smallest part of it, really. If it was in any way significant, then I would not be so needled. But yeah, I guess we will get into it. Right, so my mother recently broke her hip, and she had not too long before that had a stroke and had lost the motor control on the right hand side of her body and was working tirelessly to try and regain at least as much of it as possible. So she had only was just finally getting to the point where she was relearning to walk and was able to sort of hobble around. And then in the process of attempting to hobble around, she had a fall. And, once you get to a certain age, a small fall does a lot of damage. And so she broke her hip. Um, the the outcome of that is basically that she's in a lot of pain and was pretty depressed about the whole thing because she had just gotten to walking again and now she's not able to walk again. So she had a emergency hip surgery and they replaced her hip, the femur ball, the part that usually breaks, um, and so on. I made an impromptu trip back up to see my parents for a few days. It was all I could fit in was a few days because there's just not enough people at work this time of year, due to everybody being off on holiday and whatnot. So when I was making the trip up on the Monday, first thing that happened after I set my alarm for. I was going to catch a flight at like 10 or 11 in the morning. I set my alarm for 7 o'clock to get out of bed, and at 7:05 I got a message on my phone telling me my flight had been cancelled. I was not impressed, so I rebooked to another flight and eventually caught that and arrived later in the day, but not before I'd lost most of the day to unexpected delays. Anyway, so I had a brief trip there, which was, it was not that relaxing, but it wasn't that stressful either. It could have been a lot worse. But the real pain in the backside was coming back. Now, I was scheduled to catch a 6 a.m. flight to Christchurch to return home, and so I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to the airport to check in at about 5, and then sit in the departure lounge. And this turned out to be the beginning of an extremely long day. That flight was delayed 5 times, I think. Initially 5 times. And then there was then it became apparent that there were issues. There were mechanical issues with the plane, and there were weather issues in the area because apparently the winds had picked up, sort of just above ground level, had picked up to be quite high. And so after around about 5 delays, that flight got cancelled and I had to rebook. And then that flight that I rebooked to got delayed a couple of times, and that one was the one that I rebooked to was a connecting flight, and that one got delayed a couple of times as well, and then the part of the connection got cancelled. So I had to they rebooked for me again because they needed to move me around. So I got that booking cancelled, and I was rebooked to another one, and that got delayed another 2 times. And eventually, I was able to leave the airport terminal at 4:10 in the afternoon. So about 11 hours after I arrived at the terminal, and that flight took me to Auckland. Now, the thing about Auckland is nearly as far away from my starting point as Christchurch is, except in the opposite direction.
Right. Now you
But-
can drive.
But so I went from being about 400 kilometers away from Christchurch or whatever to being about 800 kilometers away from Christchurch. And so I ended up sitting waiting at another terminal, but I think by the time I actually got home, I had been delayed 9 times and had 2 flights cancelled, and 15 hours had passed.
Be sure
But
to leave
yes,
them.
eventually
Be sure to leave them 1-star review.
they did ask me for feedback, and don't forget to leave feedback about your flight. It's like, I don't know if I can face the feedback form because I would just get so mad. But yeah, so it was a long and arduous trip, and frankly, it just seems like the competency crisis writ large. I don't know how they can possibly screw up so many times in such a short span of time. But yeah, I lost an entire day. Well, nearly double, like sort of a double shift worth of time in sitting in airports doing basically nothing except being very, very bored. It looked to me like a lot of the other people in the terminal didn't even hang around to wait for a flight. They just gave up and went home. We'll book again another day. This is clearly ridiculous. But there was just only a couple of people like me who basically, well, it's this day or no day. We don't have any backup plan. I've got to get out of here somehow. So yeah, that sucked. The only bright spot is that I got delayed so many times that I ended up on one of the flights that serves alcohol. So at least there was beer.
Yeah, I was. It was the middle of my workday when you first started mentioning the delays to me, and I came back, and around the time I was done with work, around the time you said 7th and canceled.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't really want to go through that again, but I don't like now. I'm sort of like I used to be pretty casual about I'll just book a trip and go at the drop of a hat. But after this, I'm a little bit more gun shy about travel now because I don't know how much time I'm going to lose when I
Just
attempt it.
rent a rowboat. You'll get there faster.
Could be. It was quite ridiculous. Like the journey is by plane, even in the tiny bombardier planes that they use for domestic flights between small airports in New Zealand. Like they're really slow planes, relatively speaking, but it still only takes 90 minutes to make the journey, and it took me 15 hours to cross that distance. So yeah, I was pretty nettled by all of that. But anyway. So I'm back at work now, and we are perilously short on people. The situation is bad and only fixing to get worse. January in particular is going to be a nightmare because we had some people resign and we've got lots of people on holiday at the same time. So we're just constitutively short on people. Like we're below the minimum necessary to run. There's not really anything else to say about that other than the new year is going to suck for me. I'm going to be very, very, very busy. Hopefully, our customers will spin up a bit slower a bit more slowly and give me time to get everything in order. But historically, they haven't really done that, so you don't really have any reason to believe that it's not going to suck. Anyway, that being what it is, what did I get done playing in video games this week? Okay, well, we'll start with the minor one of Blue Archive, so they released the next chapter of the story. I thought that this was the finale, but it's evidently not, because they left me at another cliffhanger. So overall, still, this story is just like it's strictly inferior to Eden Treaty, and it's probably not as good as like the fully realized saga of the games development department either. It's sort of it's I think it's kind of a bit bunny's tier,
Ugh.
basically rabbit platoon tier. I don't rate it, and it's largely like it's just a quality thing. Like it's not that the story is offensively bad or anything like that, but it's just like the writing is has less finesse. The structure is the major problem. The structure and pacing of it is just really amateurish and clumsy, and it makes it very hard to sort of like properly lock in and follow the story. Like when it came to Eden Treaty, the entire time I was on the edge of my seat. What's going to happen next? Like I think Eden Treaty is just like a real masterclass in old school gacha writing. But this one is just like a really clumsy attempt to elevate essentially the Foreclosure Task Force chapter to another tier, and they are taking a very crude approach to doing so by just sort of like crashing myth arc elements into the story to try and give it some hooks into the broader setting. Like they do have the Dawn Trail problem fundamentally, in that this is sort of like the first big stirring of meta arc following up on the finale on chapter F, because
Oh,
chapter F basically closed off the majority of things, and the second chapter of the Rabbit Platoon was about finishing the Rabbit Platoon's very personal story to them, and the Hyakuyaku story is also, while it's got a few little tethers to the broader myth arc via Kuzunoha, by and large, the Hyakuyaku story is also like Hyakuyaku specific in the way that Rabbit Platoon is Rabbit Platoon specific. But this one is supposed to be tied into the broader setting, largely due to the fact that Abydos used to be the power in Kivotos before the desertification set in. And so they keep mentioning like concepts that, honestly, every time they mention something that is clearly going to be part of the next part of the myth arc, I keep thinking, yeah, can we do that story instead? Because I'm getting a bit tired of waiting for this one to find its feet. It's just the pacing is a disaster, and their attempt at non-linear storytelling has just made it exponentially worse. It's not to say that it's the worst gacha story I've ever read or anything like that. In fact, compared to a lot, it's actually pretty decent. The problem is that Eden Treaty was just a really hard act to follow, like really hard, and they're just not really bringing it to the party right now. And this was at sort of like the apex point also of the sort of internal corporate sabotage that the primary like producers were undertaking against the project to try and create a space for their new pirate project that they were going to launch. But so
rip.
it's sort of like there's an explanation, like a corporate explanation for why it's bad, much in the way we can assume that Inazuma is bad because the attempt to work under COVID conditions caused their production cycle to break down and become basically disorganized. Likewise, their internal corporate sabotage problem with this one has clearly affected the writing, and the writing is sort of like constantly scrambling to keep up with itself. But yeah, I was still engaged enough to just sit through the whole thing and keep clicking next chapter. I want to see what happens next, but it was just on a level below what I've come to hope for from Blue Archive, largely because Eden Treaty was just so excellent.
Yeah, I'm
So,
I'm I'm at this point thinking just but I have not booted the game up in a while now. And I think it's gonna stay that way for probably a whole things continue at this pace with these kind of reports.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll bring it home. I don't think that they will, based on the fact that the bloom's sort of fallen off of its flower, compared to what it was in the overseas market. It is currently the biggest property in East Asia. It's not even close. Like, it has displaced Toho, it has displaced Kantai Collection, it has displaced Fate. It's displaced all of those in it being like the big Comiket property that everybody is doing fan works for. But it's sort of just being supported by that sort of fandom cottage industry at the moment. It's not really being propped up by good material, and I think that they do have a roadmap for it based on the elements that they're laying out that tie into sort of like major arc 2 type of thing, which is sort of like the Tyrant Emperor's legacy type of thing. The rough gist of it is that the era in which Hoshino sort of grew up in is sort of takes place about 2 years before the main arc. And 2 years before present day in Kivotos was a total mess. And the reason for that was that there was a sort of like a mad prodigy had risen to the top of the power pyramid in Gehenna. And while they aren't sort of a combat prodigy the way that Hoshino is, they were sort of like a genius on the level of like Himari, if Himari also had engineering skill and didn't spend all her time navel gazing about how much she loves herself. Like this was the sort of an individual who clearly had access to over technology and was completely reckless about just randomly implementing it into weaponry just to see if it would work.
Well,
And so,
how can Himari navel gaze though with all the blankets she's covered in?
well, she's always so cold, unlike Amy, who is not.
She has penguin friends.
She does. Anyway, so yeah, they've laid down the groundwork to do another arc that is going to basically be the Gehenna centric arc, and this is the arc that everybody's been waiting for since Eden Treaty, because like the Gehenna fans, the Gehennoids, I guess, are have always been a bit rustled that Trinity got so much spotlight for the three best arcs that the game has ever had, and and basically Gehenna have just been like apart from just Hina, everybody is just bunny ears lawyer all day long, and there's not really any sensibility to Gehenna being a major power in Kivotos because the person in charge is Makoto, for crying out loud.
I've got some gifs. There we go.
You've got
That one will work. Drop it in live show chat.
this is relevant to Genshin because Mualani, because all I hear is Mika when Mualani talks. What even is Mualani saying when she just yaps every time she's idling?
She's talking about going surfing and you want to go catch some waves and stuff. She won't shut up.
So she's just saying a lot of nothing.
Oh, yeah, a lot of tour guidey nonsense.
Anyway, so I might as well just move on from there because there's just not much to say and the story is not over yet. I don't really think that because the way the story is paced, if I'm reading it correctly, which I may or may not be since it's been such a staccato pacing, there can't be more than one more story drop left. But that means that they've carved one chapter into 4 deployments, which is really slow, like not quite FGO tier drip feeding, but still pretty bad.
That's like we gotta get something out so we don't look like FGO.
I mean, it was still a good couple hours of story at auto read pacing. But yeah, it was just too much of it is like a retread of ground that they've walked before. But I feel like it's just basically cannibalizing Foreclosure Task Force 1 and 2. Like, the whole point of this is basically to say, well, we solved the pragmatic issue as it appeared to be at the time in Foreclosure Task Force 1 and 2, but that didn't even begin to address all of the sort of like emotional scars that are being carried around that caused people to behave in this way. The worst part about the story so far is that they have done absolutely zero to connect this properly to the myth arc that existed before. Like, there has been Hoshino is front and center for a lot of chapter 3, and they have done absolutely zero to explain why she's such a prodigy, how she got the attention of Gematria, and what is it about her that matters so much to their plans. They haven't even touched it. The whole story is being driven by Gematria, and like, they are the main antagonist behind the scenes. They make that clear in the prologue for this chapter, that they're the ones driving it, but they don't do anything other than orchestrate. It doesn't appear to be pursuing an end other than, oh, we want to cause trouble. So if they deliver on that, they're going to have to pile all of that into the back chapter, which is just really bad pacing. Like, everything just seems to be happening for semi-arbitrary corporate reasons so far. There's still a few, like, you can still see the traces of the Blue Archive logic in there, though. Like, for instance, the fact that every time you see any trade union depicted in the story, they are always just completely retarded or completely evil. Like, there are no good trade unions. Trade unions are just a force for evil.
I occasionally, whenever I think about that game, I remember the trade unions, but the thing that will come back to me is the commie robot. That one section of the story.
Yeah. He fortunately hasn't put in an appearance. But yeah, so the story, I don't think that unless there's like a whole chapter of material that they have in store for the last section of the story, I don't see really how they can tie this all together, because it doesn't seem to know where it's going really. It's just like things keep happening, and it's sort of like, we will motivate you with sort of like amusing and memeable moments, like they like making. Have you seen the I presume that you've seen the trolley problem memes going around on the internet in the
Uh,
past.
I've seen them in the past, but
Yeah, like just any old one. This is just like as a
yeah.
concept, right? So, there's a variant on the meme which is multi-track drifting, right?
Oh yeah, you put the trolley on both tracks.
Yeah, this is like canonized in uh the archive. Like, it's something that the train twins actually do, not once but a couple of times, just because.
Freckle drifting.
But yeah. Anyway, that's that. Lots of people have been whinging about my content drought in Honkai Star Rail, but I don't actually think the content cadence is much different to normal.
Um,
I think that
aren't
they're
we
just whinging because they're whinging.
Tatsumi with stars next to their name and his Lonin avatar is asking to join the world?
I don't think we need that person.
Have they not played any other HIYA game when it's before a .0 patch?
Well, considering that they all should have been playing Star Rail before, like, they should already know what this is like. But yeah, so there's been a lot of complaining about that. I, on the other hand, still found things to do. I sat down and I properly finished the storyline portion of Unknowable Domain. And since I don't hate the mechanics the way Aristeel does, I don't know, like, for me, my characters don't really scale out of relevance. Maybe it's just the way I do my scepter builds, but most of my damage is still done by my characters. Um, but I don't hate the mechanics enough to stay away from it, and I actually really enjoyed the way it played out. I liked seeing your boy Aha come in as the great hero at the end.
Uh huh.
resolving the situation.
That was the only good part about that crap.
I liked the whole thing. But I'm particularly fond of Herta as a character, and this is basically, the prologue to her entry to the story proper. Um, but yeah, I liked how that all played out. Lots of people have been speculating since basically since the game launched that Polka Kakamond would eventually come into play as a major antagonist. Uh, this sort of lays the groundwork for that to be possible. Um,
Like with your boy
it's
Doctor
also,
Primitive being laid before.
yeah, it really seems like compared to a lot of the other settings, Star Rail seems to be spoilt for choice for antagonists because,
Oh,
like,
Christinault
fully
is now asking to join the world.
good grief.
Getting spammed right now.
The um because it's like fully half of the 10 stone hearts have got antagonist energy. A good number of the Genius Society members have antagonist energy. There's pretty much every one of the Aeons has a good guy Pathstrider's faction and a bad guy Pathstrider's faction. Like they're spoilt for choice for random antagonists. The only problem with that is that occasionally that can cause a loss of focus writing wise.
Where
But
they have to just kill the Annihilation Gang because they got too many choices.
I I hold out a faint hope that is done with purpose. Like because they did involve one of them, the most popular of them, to be specific, in the main plot very briefly. So I think that it is not impossible that they will do something with those guys. It's definitely possible. I don't know how or why, but maybe they're playing their cards close to their chest. That said, Hoyo's pretty bad at playing their cards close to their chest, so we don't really know for sure that they're going to do anything with those guys. But
As
you
evident
know,
by the fact we can't watch the live stream for the newest Genshin because it's apparently riddled with spoilers.
yeah, right up till past the end of the Netland arc, from what I've heard. Let's just go on into the. They did the FGO thing as well, where they show the silhouettes of the new characters that are going to be coming out in the next few patches.
I know one of the silhouettes because it made its way into the Grand Blue discussions.
Well, the problem is that most of them are already known. There's only like 3 that are even in question
Yeah,
because all the others have already been introduced.
one of them has got the Grand Blue fans really hyped because it looks like a giraffe.
Like a giraffe.
Like a giraffe, DRAPH.
Oh, giraffe. Oh, right, yeah. That one is the second from the end, I think, if you're counting left to right. And that's one of the 3 that are not like already introduced, but all the others are. Like one of them is like 99% likely to be Skirk, for instance. Yansan is on the left. Like, it's kind of hard to mistake. The vet guy that keeps getting name dropped is also on there. As are a couple of others that have been introduced in the past. So there's not really that much mystery to it.
Just make my giraffe waifu big booby blonde girl. Make her a Navi a friend. Make her a Geo friend so we can run the Geo meme team again. Please, Hoyo.
Hoyo never do what people want you to do. Hoyo does as Hoyo pleases. Anyway, so yeah, I finished Unknowable Domain. I enjoyed Unknowable Domain. I don't really see any great need to go back there. It's not like there aren't still a bunch of Stellar Jade floating around in there, but most of them have a disproportionate amount of work required to actually get a hold of them. So it's not that likely that I'll invest a huge amount of effort in there, especially considering the higher hysteresis of performance for builds in unknowable domain. Like, if I really wanted to do it, and probably if I decided I really wanted to do it, pulling on the next Aventurine banner would be the next step. But I could probably just soldier on through Simulated Universe and Divergent Universe higher skill levels. It's just not the same for Unknowable Domain because you have less ability to perturb your raw party power. Like the multiplier on what you personally do is lower, and the hysteresis in build quality is higher. So
The door has blown open. I will be right back. Keep going. I can hear you.
so it's not really a strong prospect to just sit down and plug away at Unknowable Domain. It doesn't seem like a good use of time. Like, I still have Golden Gears and Swarm Disaster not cleared, and I would be able to make sort of like tangible progress in those modes compared to Unknowable Domain, where I might or might not make progress because the random factor is higher. That's of course always been the issue with Unknowable Domain. I don't know if there's any real way to massage that. It could be that, you know, the golden components that they add to the pool once you hit the top of the upgrade tree are such powerful sweepers that they can offset the power imbalance, but you just don't have the control required to make progressing those higher difficulty levels a live prospect. So I don't really see myself working on those anytime soon. And in fact, I think most people who aren't like just monogaming Star Rail will probably come back to those later when the average power level of characters is higher to offset the hysteresis that gets your characters one shot. Maybe when the sustain game is a bit more stable and less dependent on a single character, that is to say Aventurine, in order for you to survive at high difficulty levels.
What you mean is when we have Adventurine 2, this time with boobies behind the booby window.
Yeah, I mean, if they release Aventurine with boobies, then all of my reservations about pulling for Aventurine sort of disappear, pretty much. So, yeah.
Had to pull
Um,
2 icky boys back to back.
yes, that is a thing. So yeah, that's that. Genshin, I have not. I was sort of hoping to spend some time doing some exploring in the new regions in Genshin, um, while I was in the space of time that I actually spent sitting in the airport. That had actually been penciled in for Genshin time, and that did not happen because I was sitting in the airport. Um, So yeah, I haven't really done any of that. What I did do in Genshin was very sort of like narrowly on rails do Little One's story.
Oh,
So I didn't do any exploring because I didn't have that sort of time, but I did just do that storyline all the way down to the bowels of the earth where you wind up at the end.
yeah, I was gonna say when you teleported to hell down there, I'm like, you do know that's major story spoilers. I wasn't sure if you had done that yet.
So yeah, I sort of narrowly did that, and overall I really enjoyed it. Like, this was sort of like a good old fashioned JRPG adventure.
Yep, we got
Uh,
a antagonist set up. We got a good old dragon to fight. We got a good old mystery story going on. We got Bubba.
it's like you've got a flying fairy sidekick. You've got a cute animal sidekick.
It
You've
has the
got like
dumbest name for an
and
attack I've ever seen in my life.
yeah, like you've got all of the stuff required to do like classic JRPG style high fantasy anime story, and they just hit all the notes, and you get your cool climactic fights, and you get your aerial chase scene, and all of this other stuff, like all the real classics. It's just a real good fun adventure. I can see why the actual Archon quest was so perfunctory, because clearly they were not focused on that at all.
Somebody had a great idea and they just said roll with it. That works.
So yeah, I had a good time with that. I thought it was really, really, really enjoyable content. Those particular sort of quests, those sort of large scale world subquests, like almost like including like the one in the area that we're currently running around in. Like those sort of larger scale world quests, I think they've really been really good the last couple of
I think
major patches, like
you
the
haven't.
Fontaine one, and I haven't
Yeah,
done most of the Fontaine ones, but I can already tell from accidentally starting several of them that the quality level is way higher than they used to be.
yeah. The Fontaine ones, I imagine, would feel even better if we were doing them piecemeal because these just seem to work better done piecemeal when you don't have the giant block that you have to chew through. At least that's my opinion on these. I normally like to bulk and batch play things, but for these type of little side quests, it seems like it works better when we're caught up to the content and doing it as it comes out.
Well, if what you're doing is like a sort of like a regular periodic cadence gacha game, mastering that feeling is really where you want to be heading, because you simply can't produce all the bulk all at once, but you need to keep people engaged. So mastering making people feel sated by little chunks that are doled out on the regular is really where you want to be if you're designing a game of this type.
And it also makes me excited for the next Archon quest and how big it's probably going to be, given how much time they've saved by not including an Archon quest in 5.2 functionally. I'm wondering how
Yeah, what?
much time for animations and full custom cinematic stuff is all being crammed into 5.3. Speaking of, I had the dates wrong on the banners. I thought the Nouvellette and Zhongli banner was going to end a week or two later than it actually does. So I thought that Malvika would come out the week we came back. No, she comes out in a week. It's
Yep,
already
even
almost
better.
here. So we may, especially because Fern doesn't have anything saved up to pull. We may belay the Malvika show pull plan.
I'm not farmed up enough to use her for anything either, anyway, so I'm not really in that much of a hurry.
I have most of her stuff as the leaks to true pre-farmed. It's obviously not the boss drops because you can't get those. But
Anyway,
we'll see more
uh,
when it gets closer to release date.
yeah, even though it would make more sense to be focused on Mavwika, I'm still more focused on Sidlali, so I'm farming for her stuff mainly.
I think she needs berries.
I think I've got enough berries. I stole all Furin's berries last week.
All of my perk flowers.
You got to get them perp flowers. Anyway, so yeah, that was more or less what I got done in Genshin this week. I haven't done any more like chest or puzzle clearing. I'm hoping I can carve out some time to do that over Christmas. Although it's basically for me right now, it's a matter of hitting that sort of minimum 80% before the timer expires and keeping up with the events, because my Primagem pot isn't actually doing too badly right now. It's over 60k at this point, so I'm within reason doing pretty well on Primagems for the time being. Um, so that basically pushes up the priority of keeping up with premium currencies and the other Hoyo gachas I'm playing. So, Honkai Impact 3 has sort of been like pseudo backburnered. I still do a bunch of the events, not all of them, but I do some of the events each week. It's got a much more rapid cadence for things like the equivalent of like Spiral Abyss, and that rotates twice a week, not once every like 40 days. So there's a lot of engagement, active engagement required with the content loop in Honkai Third if you're interested in keeping up with it. And most people, it seems, most people who play Honkai Impact Third, the other Hoyo they play, if they play another Hoyo, is usually Starro, which is the slowest content cadence, and also the only one which has auto mode. Um, so it's clearly something that is generally regarded as having a large amount of engagement required. Mainly, I'm in it for the story. So probably once I eventually get caught up with the story, the whole thing will get backburned and put on basically story mode for me. They've moved. It looks like they've moved to a model where you don't really need that much building on your own characters to participate in story compared to what you used to. So that suits me just fine. So what is left is ZZZ basically. I have not even scratched the surface of the current patch because the current patch appears to be ginormous. In fact, part of the motivating reason for me not having done much of the new ZZZ content is that I can't work out what a lot of the new ZZZ content is, or where it is, or how it's built, or anything like that. So all I can really say from the ZZZ point of view is I had to pull to pity 3 times to get Miyabi and then her signature
Hey,
W engine.
hey, you got your failed pity for Soldier 11 like on the first couple 10 pulls.
No, I didn't. I went to pity for Soldier 11.
I thought
I
you got
went.
one of them quick.
I went to pity for Soldier 11. I went to pity um, whatchamacallit, Miyabi. I went to. I think. I got Rena's W engine on like pull 30 or something like that,
Okay, was
and then
that
I
the
had to
one?
go.
That the one you got
I had to
fast?
go, and I had to go to pity for Miyabi's W engine. So basically, the gacha screwed me nearly as hard as it possibly could, and burned me really, really bad on premium currency. So my current priority is going to have to be to try and get caught. Once I've gotten all the missables in the other games, my priority will be to try and get caught up on some of the older stuff. Like, I haven't touched any of the red versions. I don't know what they're called. The red versions of regular quests.
Oh, the hard
Um,
modes?
yeah, I don't know how hard means,
Not very.
but I haven't touched any of those. So I presume that there are polychromes for them. Um,
For first clear, yeah.
yeah, so I'm basically treating that as a reservoir that I'm gonna have to start scooping out of.
Got all the Bang Boo TV side quests you haven't done. Got all the.
Yep. So yeah, basically I have to start replenishing because, like I've said before, my pull decisions, like 90% of my pull decisions are made on the basis of aesthetics and personal preferences, and not at all on whether or not the character is any good. um, there are occasional exceptions to that, although occasionally they are also like they've got aesthetic corollaries. Like, for instance, the only reason I went all in on Shalonen was not because I find Shalonen to be an appealing character necessarily. I mean, she's okay, but I'm not particularly fond of her. But more because she enables Ningguang, who I am fond of, although largely for Stockholm syndrome reasons. But Astra Yao falls directly in my target radius, so I already decided that I'm pulling for her. It's a matter of scraping up the resources to do it before her banner runs.
Maybe
So
they'll eventually come out with a multiplayer mode. I get Eve and you get other girl. We can run them together.
yeah, I've been putting that they need to sort of mush on with that multiplayer development that they promised in every feedback survey. But
Oh man, can you
yeah,
imagine double Miyabi in multiplayer? All of the judgment nuts.
I think that that's probably part of the reason they haven't finished yet, is that there's a lot of silly bullshit that can be pulled with 2 people that they probably want to have a handle on in some way without hedging out people who aren't playing in the silly bullshit style.
I think
Um,
probably the other part of it is it has to do with chain attacks and the way dodge counters work and how they affect time and
well,
slow down.
if I'm totally honest, I would think that most of it probably has to do with infrastructure and netcode.
It's possible. Also, Kachina can totally ride up these things, though you can't climb them.
Interesting. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna have to go into resource building mode. Now I pulled Miyabi also for waifu reasons, but it seems like she's also cracked as all get out.
Oh yeah,
So I'm gonna consider that to be a win from my point of view. My
and
preference on waifus has been vindicated again.
let me
Um,
just frame how cracked she is. There's a new game mode introduced that is horizontal investment with 3 boss fights, and you can't repeat characters across 3. I have for the one of the boss, the newest boss, the hardest boss. The team I ran was effectively solo Miyabi. and I got 3 stars on
I
it.
I saw somebody who managed to clear the hardest stage in Shiyu Defense in I think a minute 40, uh, playing into an ice resistance using Miyabi solo.
Mhm. Yeah, her Judgment Nut is no joke. Thing hits like a tanker truck.
Unfortunately, the only play that I've had time to do with Miyabi has been in the story mode, and unfortunately, her little resource pips give me absolute autism. Like, it's like don't have exactly the right number.
Bernice will help with that.
It's like I don't want to overcap either. I need to desperately avoid overcapping
You're going
while
to
also
you're going to overcap.
I know, but this is why I say it's tism.
Just
It's not a
just
practical gameplay difficulty; it's a tism difficulty.
just just ask yourself, can I nut? If yes, Judgment Nut. If not, then continue working on building
Well,
towards Judgment Nut.
it's not a question of judgment nut or not. It's a question of level 3 judgment nut or any judgment.
Well, the level 1 and 2 of Judgment Nut are not really Judgment Nut. They're just kind of like sword waves. Okay, cool. No, we just need to build the Judgment Nut because it's something like a 4,500% multiplier or something crazy on our level 3 Judgment Nut.
Yeah, which I mean, this raises a whole bunch of power creep related questions. But the theory that I was mentioning, Tari, before the show was that Miyabi is sort of like a power tent pole in the way that Archons are in Genshin. Like they are just more powerful. That
Yeah,
is their thing.
yeah. Like I got pretty good gear on my BRB from the rolls I did this week, hitting the thing, and my Jane can keep up with her, but my Jane is cracked. And my Miyabi could use. She isn't at the crit threshold yet. She's close, but she's not there. And that getting that crit threshold is a major damage boost.
I'm really not looking forward to having to farm Woodpecker Electro.
Yeah, I
It's not the greatest farming stage, I gotta tell you. The other stuff you get tends to be rubbish.
yeah I've farmed it. Yeah, I remember. I don't remember what's on the stage, but I remember groaning in it.
I'm still farming what is functionally her signature set, um, with zero good fortune, to be totally honest. Um, I'm also sort of a bit in the woods as to whether or not it's worth caring about whether there's anomaly on a given piece or not.
Uh, it seemed the base damage of Frostburn is so freaking high. It doesn't seem to matter if you get mastery. Maybe a little bit of proficiency if it can even come on a substat. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it seems to me that you should build her like an attack character
Yeah,
and then play her like an anomaly character,
that seems to
and
be
that
the way.
there doesn't seem to be a great deal of percentage in trying to build her as a crit anomaly hybrid or anything like that. It just doesn't. The numbers don't seem to work. But
No,
I'm not really sure.
the raw damage output of level 3 Judgment Nut is so cracked and high. It seems like investing in crit rate, crit damage will get you way further than investing. Yeah, the Frostburn damage is also nuts, but it's not 4,500% nuts.
Yeah, unfortunately, I still need to farm up them discs, and farming up discs is not a short job. So it'll be a while before I can really put Miyabi to work, and at that point, I've got to decide how I'm going to leverage her. That's going to be the real challenge. Um, she's extremely flexible in certain respects, but kind of inflexible in others, largely because so much of her power seems to be tied up in must be in a team comp with a support or must be in a team comp with another member of Section 6. And if fulfilling the Section 6 parameter is difficult for you for whichever reason, like let's say you don't have your ideal partner, which is probably Yanagi, or your Sokaku is not built, or whatever. I'm not really sure on balance how much Sokaku benefits her. Like she does have the Ice Res Shred, but you've also got to put Sokaku in your team for that. And how she stacks up these days, I'm not really sure.
Noelle seems to be the one everybody falls back on if they don't have.
Noelle is the maid from Genshin.
Still got Noelle in the brain. Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole seems to be the one that everybody falls back on.
Yeah, I mean, Nicole's a quality support. I use her on the regular. She is my go-to for my off teams support and is basically all that keeps me running in sheer defense. The only way for me to shore up my times for my off team. But yeah, so I'm not really sure exactly. I'm not really sure she's as flexible as people say she is. I think mostly people are just like starry-eyed at the amount of raw power she brings to the table, because there are lots of comps in which you really don't have access to a lot of stun comps if you are bringing a support, because you're pretty much mad not to play her without another method of generating um anomaly present. So you kind of, unless you have a good way of stacking heaps and heaps of anomaly onto, say, Nicole and playing the corruption angle like that, you're generally going to want to play with at least 2 anomaly in most situations. And while that's not strictly necessary, does seem to be like the favorable approach in a lot of ways. And that's actually hems in your options quite a bit, because it hedges you out of the stunner in most comps that don't include Yanagi. So yeah, while she's definitely flexible in that you can slot her in a bunch of different teams, I think that the main reason that you can slot her into a bunch of teams is because her numbers are cracked. It's not that her numbers are cracked in a bunch of different teams. It's that her numbers are so cracked all the time that if you put her in a team that really doesn't suit her, it's not going to be as obvious, because she's still going to play like another premium DPS would in a team that's completely unsuitable.
The if you're gonna run her in a stun team, I've seen Stunner of Choice, Miyabi, and really any support. I see a lot of people running Lycon because it's the most obvious with Shokaku, because you can just keep the ice going. And
I would pick lighter over Lycaon, to be honest.
from what I can see,
Probably.
people seem to not have pulled for Lighter very much, probably because he's a key boy. There are definitely his fans are out there, and I do see him listed as a potential one for the stunner. But
Because he just delivers a massive amount of ice res shred. So
yeah, he is
it,
probably better. But and you could
like
probably run Lucy.
he's basically like, if you made Lycaon and Sokaku do the fusion dance, you get lighter, essentially, except he does fire damage. And then you can run Lucy as the support. So you've got 2 sources of fire, 1 source of ice, and shred for both those elements. It seems like that's the premium way to run a stunner. Like classically, the team has been, like on Miyabi Sokaku. That's the most common team in closed beta in the original deployment of Miyabi, before they had to rebuild her because she was too powerful. But
The
yeah, I think that there are not that many stunner teams that Miyabi slots into properly, and most of the time you're using her damage as a crutch.
yeah, you could uh, not having Yanagi takes away a lot of the flexibility you would have in building teams, because it won't let you do the stun double anomalies. But it's just she at the power level the game's at right now. It just as long as there is a support somewhere, if even if the team's a little pledged to steal a fern word, it'll just work.
Yeah, I also had to pull to pity for Agent Gulliver. Not that I have a use for Agent Gulliver, but that animation is just too funny.
Just wanted the FBI open up. Oh, it's not a free FBI boo we get. It's a free FBI boo nameplate we might get at Twitter event.
Oh, we already got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
I
hoping it was a
remember.
free FBI boo. No, it's a free FBI
Why
boo
would
nameplate.
why would they give you a free FBI boo when they can make you pull for FBI boo?
Oh no, I was thinking maybe Bang Boo Pons aren't worth very much to them because you can't buy them.
Anyway, so yeah, I got Agent Gulliver as well, but I had to go to pity for him as well. Because the Gacha apparently hates me right now. I don't really have a use for him. I don't have a good way to put him into play. Again, he's purpose built for the Miyabi Yanagi core. like screamingly obvious that's what it's for. I don't know if he can be triggered by 2 Electro or whether it has to be two
Uh,
Section 6.
Usually for the faction specific, has to be two of that faction.
Yeah, so that basically means that he's going to be in the Sokaku team, which basically means that you can only really play alongside you can really only really only got one fit for that. There's only one team that fits that properly, and that's the Unagi Miyabi core with, some third party in
I
there,
mean,
whether you go the stunner route or the support route. You can the only way most people will be able to meet it is by forcing yourself to run an icky boy and trying to find a way to make that work. Um, that's the most obvious way to run like a accessible stunner like NB. So you'd go like NB Haramasa Miyabi, Agent Gulliver, or something like that.
yeah.
But I don't know about you, but Haramasa is not easy to get the rhythm off. I don't know.
No,
I had a great deal of difficulty with it, a lot of difficulty, because you're forced to play it in the hardest fight in the story, and I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. I can just feel it.
he is a combo cadence character where you have to find a rhythm with him and try and stick to it. These are not uncommon in action games, but biggest problem with him right now is released because I don't think he's a bad character. When I managed to get the rhythm right, I could
No,
do
no,
some
no.
real
The biggest problem with him is he has a penis.
yes
Let's
that
just put that right out there.
yeah that's the biggest problem with him. The other biggest problem with him is he's going up against Miyabi. So no matter what you do with him, no matter how good the damage numbers come up, they're not Miyabi numbers. And
But he
no
is he is the primary way to fill another Section 6 slot that most people have access to.
Yeah, he is. He does seem to be a good character and able to output damage. He takes a bit of work to do it, but he can output the damage. The problem is, it's just like Ellen Joe or Uncracked Jane damage. It's not. It's not Miyabi Judgment Nut damage.
Yeah, well, the thing that always sort of sticks in my craw about the attack archetype is that it's always felt to me, and this may just be an incorrect impression that I just can't seem to dislodge from my head, but it always seems to me that um functionally attack characters are joined at the hip to a stunner. Like that's the gate on them doing big damage is getting the stun up. Whereas for an anomaly character, their gateway to big damage is disorder. That's how you get your big damage out of a normal anomaly character that is not named Miyabi,
And they
is
have,
by proccing disorder.
and most people pulled for Bernice because she enables to have that no matter what.
Yeah, I'm fine playing Bernice without disorder because number one, Caesar generates the odd disorder anyway, and in a lot of farming stages, the timing of the fight with middle of the road level 60 damage lines up such that I get the disorder proc every time. Like I only get 2 disorder procs in say like a standard butcher farm, but those disorder procs are phase enders. So it works out really nicely. But the other thing that Bernice has going for her is like really high off-field damage. That's why she has value outside disorder, because other characters can't do that. But in the case of a character like trying to run Jane Doe without disorder would be just stupid.
Yeah,
Like that would just be an unintelligent move.
yeah, I did the Jane Grace combo for until Bernice came out, and it worked with a big old asterisk on that. But
Well, the problem with Grace in disorder teams is that Grace is heavily energy bound. Like everything with Grace in disorder is to do with can you earn energy fast enough? Because Grace does not want to be on the field most of the time. She wants to come onto the field, burst, and then get off field again and start charging energy.
then you've got then as soon as Bernice came out, it cracked the Jane team. She just went bananas.
Yeah, because she can generate anomaly while not on the field, which is a really important facet of the way she works. But yeah, the that's the thing though with attack teams is that attack doesn't seem to have many dynamics to it. you can still use an anomaly character with a stun character because the anomaly will just do more damage. You still have to hit them, and you still get your double damage out of it or whatever. That's not going to change. Whereas an attack character front loads everything that they've got into actually hitting the opponent, and so using those stun damage windows becomes a critical factor.
Yeah.
So Haramasa is basically, in my mind, shackled to some stunner, of which notably Section 6 just doesn't have any.
Yeah, and what's worse is because he's Electro, ideally you want to run him with Kingi.
Yeah, so you either need to have Chingy on your team, or you're going the Enby route. And there's nothing wrong with Enby. Enby has served me well. I think for a starter girl, she's really solid. And I can actually play her because she's not complicated.
Oh, no, pause combos and big kaboom. That's it. And now you can ult
But
with her.
yes, you'll actually see her use her ult now and again. She'll give you a good way of getting started on a new stun bar, because that's the point, right?
You have no idea how happy I am I can ult with Kingi now, because it builds up her electrocharger meter.
Yeah, like Chingy just seems to get more valuable with age. Dim bang boo hips, yo.
Yep.
But
It's gonna turn out to be
yeah,
the Jew you wanted this. People knew she was good, but kept poo pooing her because they didn't want to pull on her because they were all broke after the Zuyuan banner. But man, does she just get better every time they make a change to this game or add a new character.
yeah. I would have pulled on her if I had any resources, but I only just started the game at the time. Because I think that she's a really fun character as well. But yeah.
Your carpal tunnel.
Yeah, I do have the old carpal tunnel building up. But yeah, speaking of carpal tunnel, I ended up feeling like I was going to get that again just by spamming the attack button during the ZZZ story. But yeah, so yeah, the how to use Miyabi discussion, a lot of people are poo-pooing it because, oh, she's just powerful. If you don't need to use her in any particular team, she's just powerful. No, there's something to be said for just doing things correctly, in my opinion. And so, I'm trying to give careful thought to the phenomena surrounding Miyabi and how best to use her. And if it turns out, oh well, you really have to get Yanagi to get the most out of her. Well, I mean, I get Yanagi on the rerun then, if that's what I have to do. It's not like I dislike Yanagi, it's just that there's a certain amount of mental load to her mechanics that I'm like, I don't really understand what's going on. I can't easily translate what her mechanics are to what I'm seeing on the screen. And I found that the HIYA skill descriptions for Yanagi were particularly bad.
Yeah,
Like, just did not comprehend anything I was reading.
I did get that feeling a bit. I'm going to go find a video of Yanagi. Oh no.
She's a stance-based character, and the subtle difference between the two stances, like one is a pen stance and one is an element damage stance. And it's like, well, my understanding of the theory behind this game is not sufficient for me to actually attribute a value to either one of those stances. Like, in what circumstances is it important to be in a pen stance relative to an element stance? I don't know. I mean, element stance obviously is going to help you build anomaly faster, I would presume, because you're dealing damage within that particular element. But how do you know when you're supposed to use pen?
I don't have Yanagi. I overpulled for our favorite snacks is real nice girl. So I had nothing left for Yanagi.
Yeah, I don't have Bernice's W engine, so I got Caesar's W engine instead. I feel like Caesar's still doing work for me. Like, especially as somebody who's just not good at action games, like having Caesar around as a crutch is really helpful.
I found the Yanagi video I was looking for with the dancing Yanagi. I've dumped it in a live show chat for people to go check out after the show.
But yeah, so they added a bunch of stuff to the game that I'll let Ari talk about because I haven't touched it. The only thing I did do was the story. Since it's more or less Ari's baby to talk about ZZZ, I'll leave him to discuss it in specific. But in general, I found it a very enjoyable story. Like, I was totally captured by it. It was a little bit uh it was a little bit corny in places, but it was a corny in a well, I mean, realistically, you're getting your shonen action game. We're doing all the shonen action things in a shonen actiony way. This is basically like playing a shonen series movie.
Yeah,
Um,
like
you're gonna get everything that you want out of this,
like we
so
we
have fun.
we signed up for a corny action game, and we got a corny action game story with a nice little finale for the arc one. I don't know what people wanted if they are complaining about it. I haven't seen too
I
much
don't think
about
I
it.
don't think anybody is complaining about it. Um, I think that there's going to be a lot of people who will sniff at it as being, not deep enough or whatever.
Who
But
cares?
yeah, I think that those people are just being contrarian more than anything else. Like there are a lot of people who number one don't want gacha games to be good, and number two don't want HoYoverse to be good. It's not that there's anything wrong with it intrinsically, but they just don't want it to be good, so they will find something to talk down about it. But overall, I found it to be a highly engaging, highly enjoyable experience with a bare minimum of moving things around a grid.
Yeah, they did have a forced walkie-talkie section.
But yeah, the the only sort of major criticism I have about it structurally right now is, and this is my fault. It's not really Hoyo's versus fault. Is that I like to play in Japanese, and that means that a lot of the story that gets told while you are fighting things gets lost. That part is my fault. I play in a language that I can't fully comprehend in terms of just audio without looking at this subtitles. The part that isn't my fault is the fact that if your combat outpaces the rate at which the characters are speaking, you will simply miss lines of dialogue because it will cut to the next scene
Yeah, this is a
as soon as something
problem.
dies.
This is a problem a lot of the Hoyo games have. If my muscle memory in Genshin, for instance, moves me to teleport, and Paimon started talking right when I opened the menu, and it had already moved my finger to the teleport window, it's sometimes hard to arrest my brain from clicking teleport away and just skipping that entire cutscene.
Yeah, they've sort of started to get a grasp on that. Like occasionally, for certain things and not for others, and I don't know how they decide. If you do that when you teleport in, when the screen fades back in, Paimon will say, "As I was saying," and then we'll go on with what she was saying. But in most cases, that doesn't seem to happen.
Yeah, this has been a problem with all the Hoyo games. I've kind of just learned to slow it down. The only part, this is a specific part of the main story, to head a little bit, but there's a part where you're fighting a Zuyuan on the train. You are not going to get to hear all that dialogue if you just push buttons.
Yeah, I didn't hear all that dialogue because there's only trash.
Yeah,
If all you do is hit square, which is basically all I ever do when I'm playing Zhuan,
that is all you
because I
have
don't
to
know
do.
how she works,
I
is all
can't.
I do is tap square over and over again until I realize that I'm kept on resources and I hold it down for a bit and then go back to tapping square. If you just robotically do that, everything in that stage is just trash.
That's all
There's
weak
nothing that's
to
going to
her.
slow
On
you
top of
down.
that,
So you've got no idea when it's coming to an end. You're just killing regular ethereal after regular ethereal while the characters chat about current circumstances and people.
so yeah, you're gonna have to go YouTube that one if you miss part of it, and hope somebody was not as enthusiastic about the button tapping.
Yeah, but that's about the only structural complaint that I've got.
All right, I'll save the full story talk for ZZZ because there are a pile of them.
Yeah, and I'm depending on you to give good coverage just as much as any listener might, because I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing now. The game feels kind of alien at this point, in fact.
Yeah, I'll preface it with this. I don't normally agree with the community assessment on things and their terms they come up, but for this one time it feels appropriate. This feels like a soft relaunch of the there's so much different, and something I can't talk about directly because I didn't go back to experience it, is they have added the alternative Bangbu TV. They went
What
back
does
and
that mean?
they have redesigned the Bangbu TV missions to be where you control the Bangbu and run around the TV now, or run around the TV world or the Hollows.
Wow, that's way more effort than I expected.
Yeah, it's a full rework of those things, and they kept the old version in if you really want to do them, but you have to turn on a toggle to do them.
Well, I've got a ton of blue quests just sort of floating around to do.
Yeah, I don't know if they only did them for the story quests or if they did them for all Bangbu TV quests, but yeah, if you go through them and see if they apply to all of
Yeah, well,
them.
I mean, there's some that I would definitely be happy to re-experience, like the Ballet Twins and that, for instance. They did a lot of Bangbo TV mechanics in those.
Yeah, I don't. I actually don't know the level of deployment and how much it's been applied. I assume the way they put it out, it made it sound like they applied it to all story missions. That's a ton of effort, though, and I'm
Yeah,
kind of
that seems like a lot of good money they would be throwing away there for something that most people won't see. But I don't know. I might poke it and see where the borders on it are. But yeah, I
yeah,
didn't know they'd done that at all.
yeah. They've gone back and at least a portion of the missions, and from what I could tell, most of the story missions, if not all of them, appear to have been redone with this new Bangbu TV style.
I mean, what I would say in the defense of that mode of operation would be that you can make a case for it if you have examined your metrics and found that people are dropping out of chapters like the initial chapter and the like the Victoria housekeeping chapter because they get sick of getting stuck in Bamboo TV over and over again and they want to streamline the experience to be more like the Outer Ring chapter.
I can totally see them going, yeah, no, we need to do something about that because
So
when I try to
Arpeggio Fault Guy, we know, we love you, but
you clearly that's okay. They gave him another job for the current event. He may have had to abandon Bangbu TV, but his penchant for stupid long events with way too much detail in them is still here to stay. Right. So before we let's not jump into ZZ quite yet. You got anything else for your week?
um I don't really think so. This I have taken on too many video, too many long runners at present. So at the moment, I am trying to mentally map out how I'm going to trim them back. Blue Archive is likely to be a victim. Um, Probably Blue Archive. I will pull Battle Hoshino and Shiroko Terra in the upcoming 3.5 anniversary prefest,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will probably scale right back and basically focus on just doing event stories and farming only resources that I can tap twice or energy dump for the day type of thing.
I, I
Um
I've already cut farming out of the archive. It is now just a story machine.
yeah, and realistically they don't make you use any of your own characters. Like I think I've had to use my own characters like one time, maybe one time since like that pivotal moment in Eden Treaty 3 where they make you do that
Yeah.
because of the adult card. But I think that that's basically it. They every other time it's like, and they get more and more and more and more story based, right? Like ultimately they realize that they can tell the story more effectively if they know that you aren't going to use Mika to insta jib the target,
Yeah.
and so they can actually pace health depletion based on the DPS outputs of the enemies versus the player characters.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mika. I know what you think about them Gehinners, Mika, but do you have to take that guaranteed crit rate to everybody else too?
Yeah, it was this week was Grand Assault Wakamo Hovercraft, and I diligently because Wakamo is best girl, and if I have to fight Wakamo, the only way I can make it fair is if I bring two Wakamo so that it's fair. I don't have to just unilaterally beat down best girl. So I diligently used to Wakamo to fight Wakamo. But realistically, I know that I probably could have ruined that fight much faster if I just used Mika, even though she's off color. Because Mika's cracked. And she's still cracked. The only thing she's not good for is PvP. Because as soon as that people get a whiff of there being a Mika, everybody starts to put Mika hoses on their team. She's tough. For an attacker, she's durable, but she's not PvP durable. Like the queen of PvP is basically Yuka. You know, everybody's favorite Millennium Calculator, who everybody starts with basically.
How much does she weigh now?
It's just 100 kilograms, just 100 kilograms, according to the school database.
Yeah. Oh, for me, for
But,
what's your face? For calculator, Yuka, for calculator.
yeah, but she's still the queen of PvP tanking. Like virtually, I don't think I've fought any teams that don't run her this season. This season is absolute shite on PvP though. Like this is the worst PvP season, and this is for Blue Archive PvP, which is already really bad. This is the worst season I've ever played, and the reason for that is the outcome of virtually every fight is a coin flip. It's a straight up coin flip. You can't even weight it in your favor because everybody is running like one of about 3 different teams, because everything else is non-competitive by comparison. Basically the reason for this is that the field and the field conditions, they favor Swimsuit Hanako so strongly that she has to be in your team.
Oh.
And because Swimsuit Hanako fires in an arc and everybody puts her in the corner, it means that who has more ults come up for Swimsuit Hanako in the first few seconds of the game are the one that wins the match. And there's basically no way to weight it one way or the other. Because, yeah, she's just
one of them's
crazy.
gonna literally hose the other team.
Yes. Quite literally, she will get the hose and it will be over for the other team. And that's basically 99.9% of fights go that way. There are a couple of ways to survive, but they're so RNG that it's basically not helpful. There was a rumor going around at the start of the season that fully built Miyako tanks can undermine the whole thing by you positioning her in the right place so that she stun bots the enemy Hanako. But basically building Miyako is so expensive right now that nobody has done it because she has no uses in other meta. So yeah, nobody's got Miyako ready to go. But apparently they're adding Miyako for PvP tokens at some point in the future, at which point she does start to insert herself into the current season's PvP meta. But current PvP meta is just a nightmare.
I'm reminded of a time in Princess Connect when Reno got her 6-star upgrade. And it was
That's
just
the little sister archer, right?
Yeah. And PvP boiled down to
Reno goes off first.
Yeah, whose goes off first, and if you're the attacker, does yours crit?
Yeah, it's more or less like that. Except Hanako is slightly less wholesome than Reno.
Then you had the era, and at least it wasn't as bad as the era of Princess, or not Princess Pecorine, just regular 6-star Pecorine. When she was first introduced into the game, nobody could chew through a Pecorine.
Yeah, everything would go to time.
That was probably those were the only 2 bad PvP seasons in Pinecone. For those 2. Just because there was almost nothing you could do without a cracked roster of fully built, like, defense shredders that could stack attack damage to chew through the Pekko, and the RNG of Reno going off. Every other PvP season was a whole lot of building and counterplaying based on what was in your ladder. It was fairly active.
Yeah, unfortunately, this season in Blue Archive has converged onto everybody has. Like, I run a template team as well because everybody does. If people have biases, of which characters to play, and I don't know whether or not they. I'm leaning waifu. Like I have Nagisa on my team, but Nagisa's pretty popular this season. Um, so I'm running adult Shin, and because adult Shin's just like a shoe in for Blue Archive PvP because of her energy provision. Um, I'm running Yuka. I'm running Tsubaki, who's less popular, but Tsubaki can win you fights because her taunt can interrupt an enemy skill, and if it randomly goes off at a time when a critical skill is being cast by the opponent, then it can win you the match. And I'm running Hanako as the DPS, so two DPS, two tanks. One of the DPS is largely there for the energy provision, and for supports, I'm running Swimsuit, Shiroko, and who's a accelerator, and Shredder, and I'm running Nagisa because Nagisa can basically accidentally wipe light units out just like that, and because Nagisa's best girl at Trinity. So anyway, we'll leave it there.
Right.
Oh, you're making sure that people don't forget what they took from us.
Yeah, I am. Also gonna go hang out with the people at Springs for my section for a bit of change of scenery. Just too bright down there in that cave. It's giving me a headache. People at the Springs is such a nice little area.
I'm not much of a hot temperatures person.
I am very much a hot temperatures person. I could totally live here.
No, I even take cool showers normally because I just can't take much temperature.
I could totally live in Hot Springs Surfing Town. So yeah. All right. You got anything else for your week before I take it
No,
over?
I'll leave it there.
All right. Um, we'll just roll on through, I guess. My week. Let's open the map and take a look at what I did at Genshin. So, from Friday last week until Monday, I did a bit of cleaning up. And if you zoom my map out all the way, we'll start over here at Mondstadt. Mondstadt is 100%. Liyue is 100%. Mosey our way down here to Inazuma. Surface Inazuma, including the Terrible Island, are all 100%. Economia is not, but that's I'm waiting until I get the stupid treasure compass before I even attempt to do that. Can you
Does the
Veil?
trainer companies even work down there?
I assume it does because it works. The Fontaine one works in the Sea of Bygone Eras.
Yeah, but that's much later in development.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just hoping. Either way, I don't have to see it when I scroll through the map, so it's easier to put it out of my mind.
I always find it amusing how much space the Fontaine Research Institute name takes up on the map.
Oh, yeah. So Shenyu Vale, 100% complete. Did a whole lot of Q-less cleanup in Sumeru, and Q-lesses appear to count for a lot of completion percent. And I noticed this when I was going through the land of Upper Second and the hypostyle desert down there. Hypostyle, hypostyle. But got those to 100%. Got the connecting areas to Liyue at 100%. The valley is almost at 100%. I probably just need to go find a chest or a few more rocks down there. Was working on Lost Nursery today. Ran into a problem finishing Sumeru while I was going through it, and that I need to progress the Genie quest. My Genie isn't powerful enough to remove some of the whirlwinds.
I didn't even know there was a genie quest. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, you get a little genie in a bottle that can turn off some of the whirlwinds in the desert. There's a very mega long desert quest.
This seems kind of Dory to me.
I don't think Dory's involved at all.
It's not a matter of whether she's involved or not. The genies just remind me of Dory now.
Yeah, this one's, I don't think Dory would approve of this genie, which what makes me approve of it. Fontaine all of Fontaine is not anywhere close done. I've got most of the Keylesses here, so this is just missing treasure chests, basically, and Keyless cleanup in Fontaine. Sea of Bygone Eras is like at 70 something percent, 82%. Inkonomia is at 77. And Natlan is 100% done. We are caught up on Natlan.
I will
So,
probably target Natland first and then go back to the beginning and work my way forward from there.
yeah, that's
But
this.
I might prioritize doing world quests first ahead of exploring after Natland is done.
Particularly in Sumeru, that's probably a good idea because,
Heaps of quest gating.
yeah, I have a hard time finding stuff on the treasure compass if it's showing you stuff underground without doing the Aranara.
Ugh, why does everything always come down to the R&R with that zone?
So much of that zone is gated behind the stupid Aranara. So yeah. So I'm pretty good caught up to exploring. This has got me up to 23.4k Prima Gems. And yeah, it's been a good time going through cleaning it up. The treasure compass makes all this way less painful.
You mean the new and improved treasure compass?
Yes. And in Chenyu Vale is probably the hardest of the ones I went back and 100% in because so many world puzzles aren't marked. Because they're just like you have to jump into like the owl statue to trigger the puzzle, and seeing the red markings can be a little hard sometimes. But as long as you're just paying attention while you're lawn mowing for other chests and being sure to double back in the right spots, it's doable. The bottom left area, Chinyu Vale, basically has nothing in it, and you'll accidentally 100% that place after finding like 2 treasure chests, because it turns out there's just nothing over there.
I still haven't even scratched Chenyu Vale. I haven't even done the quests there.
Yeah, it's a very it's fun to go through. Because there's no gimmicks there or needing to worry about getting locked out of very much stuff, it's pretty easy to get everything together there.
I get the impression it's also smaller than it looks on the map because it looks like it's almost as big as Liyue itself, but I don't think it's actually that much landmass there.
It can take a bit to traverse if you're just running from one end to the other, but it's not. It doesn't feel that long because of the carp mechanic there. You can just shoot yourself across most of the zone.
But Liyue is just all climbing mountain after mountain.
Yeah, it's there are mountains all over the place in Chinyu Vale too, but it's very easy to navigate because of the carp jumping mechanic where you jump the little orbs and get shot as a fish. It just skyrockets you into the sky and over the mountains, so you don't got to worry about it. So yeah, that's pretty well cleaned up and about as good as I can hope for Mavlika.
I don't want to go to Tsurumi Island though.
No, that was a pain in the butt. Bumped into our old nemesis, the daily time gated real world day world quests over the course of a week. Like there's one in Natland where he had to go feed the rocks. One, and it was only like 3 days. In Inazuma, we can't time gate anything unless it's a whole week, at least.
I still haven't done the Chernobyl quest either.
Oh, turn off the radiation barrier down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mind that there are puzzles all over the place in Inazuma. I actually kind of like the pace interruptions with the puzzles. The shoe I got with Inazuma is it just is got pace breakers with time gating all over the place if you're trying to 100%. It drives me up the wall. And every time I have to go back there for any reason, complete some objective I left behind, it's always more time gating. So yeah,
I'm actually been running in. I a couple of times I've started trying to mow the lawn to finish off Mondstadt, but I always get frustrated and stop because I keep finding chests that are new chest spawns.
oh, from hitting world
And
level
so
8 and higher.
And I keep just over and over. Oh, I finally found it. No, it's a new one. It doesn't count.
Yeah, it's variable how much any given chest or Keyless or Mora Rock will count towards your completion percentage in each area. I have no idea what the metrics are for each zone and how much leeway you have in each one. But to like the one I was missing in Mondstadt was the one everybody seems to miss. It's like over a
It's just sitting on a
waterfall.
plinth. Yeah, I found that a lot. I found that quite a long while ago, but it was using the treasure compass, the old treasure compass, that I found it.
Yeah, it's like near the Animoculus dude. Just there's this random ass waterfall that almost touches the edge of the map. If you just jump down there, there's a luxurious chest.
It's just sitting atop a column for no reason.
Bottom of a waterfall with no way for you to get back up, by the way. So yeah, that's Genshin. That was what I did before ZZZ. Work was still not hammering me yet, and then Tuesday hit and the ZZZ patch dropped. And oh boy, did I go to town on ZZZ. Because I was starting to get a little worried from the whisperings I was hearing at work that the later half of the week was going to be busy, quite busy. So I wanted to hammer it as hard as I could. So I just went full retard on ZZZ and just flew through and just not rushed play but continuous play to chew up as much of that as I could so I didn't get stuck. Now I didn't really have to, but I didn't find myself not wanting to the whole time either because I was thoroughly enjoying what I was doing while I was
No,
pretty.
Aristiel, come over here.
Oh, oh, how did I miss that?
You don't have eyes.
It blends in. Oh, there's another one up there. Then you. How in the world do we get up there? Go this way. Anyway, uh, yeah. Also, the treasures in Natland seem to be very generous for 100%. There are still treasure chests I find.
Yeah,
Oh,
I 100%ed the basin without even trying, like by accident.
yeah. Oh, God. Better be right down here. Murder somebody. Oh, there it is. Yeah, like we're just finding treasure chests hanging out at the People of the Springs area. Just all. Yep, there's another one. Jaska.
Some of us don't have Chaska. We've got to climb things or
Jaska.
skate up them, as the case may be, or drill up them, I guess, depending on circumstances.
Turbo twirl your way up there to victory. Oh, this one's. That's mean.
No, it's not. You're just blind.
Blended right into the rocks there. Okay, that's all of them.
No, you were looking for things that were hidden, not the things that were out in the open. That's the problem.
Does happen a lot. Anyway, before we jump into ZZ, Star Rail is in farm mode. I've got a Sunday that needs gear. Gearing him is not going good. It is going quite terrible, in fact. I cannot seem to get a piece of gear to save my life on Sunday of
Nor can
anything he
I.
needs.
I've been having the exact same issue ever since the patch dropped.
Like if that summon team ever gets off the ground at this rate, I'm going to be stealing Sparkle set and slapping it on Sunday. So yeah, that's how that's going. Star Rail is in farm mode.
Did you ever make any more mileage on Apocalyptic Shadow or Pure Fiction?
No.
No.
We got hard stuck after the third node in Pure Fiction, and Apocalyptic Shadow, the third node is, or the final node is a non-starter, whatever the last one is. It is. Oh, there's Tuska.
Yeah, I managed to max all of them this cycle, but I feel like I'm sort of at the ragged edge of my capability now.
Yeah,
The last couple for a given X.0 sort of like bracket tends to be pretty rough. because the meta's about to move, so they're all going to be pitched at the difficulty of like the most mature meta teams.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been just that game is in farming mode until the new story drops. We still got quite a while for that. 4 weeks before the new story drops. No, 5 weeks.
It's whatever's left of the Sunday banner plus the Tingyun banner. I mean, the Fugue banner.
Yeah. So I mean, Star Rail for when it comes to non-simulated universe content, I do see how people could get the impression that there's just not a lot going on right now because well, there isn't outside of those, but that's fine. There's still the if you are on the bleeding edge of a gotcha game, this is just to be expected. Kind of what you sign up for.
Yeah, like, you're not really supposed to mono game a gacha game anyway.
Yeah, there's a reason that we run I run 3 of the HoYo games, and I usually keep 1 or 2 on the back burner that are just in farm mode like Star Rail is right now because you will go through content lulls in each game. That's just how the way these games work. So yeah, that's Star Rail. It's totally on hold. I'm not playing any other gotcha games. Have not invested in any single player games because this week was catch up to Genshin because not pulling Mavwika is seeming like a worse and worse idea by the minute. The more crap that comes out about her kit, having her just for an exploration omni exploration transport slot, even if that's all you use her for, like that just seems like a must have. Because the guides from now on are going to be written under the assumption you can fly with the motorbike.
Ugh. Yeah, this is another one of those things that I kind of wish they just hadn't opened that can of worms. Like the Saurians were just fine, thanks. This is sort of like the same way I feel about Acheron in Star Rail. It's like you you realize that you've basically just undermined a design tool, right?
Yeah, but now you see I got Chaska here, and this lets me literally fly. Now we're going to give it to a character with the motorbike. I, I I don't know if we have numbers on how good her motorbike is for transport. I kind of hope like Mulan is still a better surfer, but if they're going this retard with it, I kind of just expect them to make her the best or equivalent to the best at everything.
I mean, they might. She is the Archon after all, but yeah, I don't, I don't know what they're. I guess that they at least at minimum had the foresight to make the vast majority of the raw power of those abilities netland bound.
Yeah,
Like Chaska doesn't really move the needle very much compared to Wanderer outside of netland.
yeah. And if you're not on water, Sharky is not going to last a very long time outside of Natland. Like Sharky bar goes down very fast if you're on land and not in Natland with the extra bar. So yeah, that was something that I prioritized getting Mavwika. Also, I would like to have her as a combat unit, not so much for on field stuff, although I'll probably experiment with that. But I'm mostly excited to have her as another Natland unit that can help Sharky out because I really do enjoy playing Mualani, but you really want to have as many Natland characters as you can so you can trigger more Night Soul bursts. So that you can Night Soul burst every rotation comfortably, you need 3 of them. And Zalonin plus Mualani means you're only getting it every other one, basically. But with Malvika there, she can sub in for what's her face for Guoba, and act as a third Natline character to let you burst way more often and be able to get the benefit of your set or your artifact set way better. And she's a pyro applicator that seems fairly decent and will definitely line up well with Mualani because she only needs pyro application once every 3 seconds, and and Malvika's interval of application is every 2 seconds. So that'll work out very nice. So I'm excited to have her for that, to really get Sharky off the ground and make him even better. I want I want to
That's not
make
going to change his short sightedness, though.
I want to make Sharky great again. There is so much damage potential in Mualani
That
and
is going to be
Sharky,
whiffed.
but it's just he's got to fight Sharky, and I'm okay with that. If you're gonna make a character have a ridiculously high damage cap, having to
Might as
wrestle
well
with
not
a
be Nouvelet.
yeah, having a part of their kit that you have to wrestle with instead of it being an auto win laser beam that doesn't even need to use reactions. I'm okay with that. I don't mind the clunkiness of Sharky. It kind of adds character to play in Mualani, if you know what I mean. Like there's a quirk of the character that you have to plan around and master, rather than just point laser beam at people and watch them die. And it does take quite a while to practice with Sharky and get good at the chomps. And her and Sharky have grown on me quite a bit, and I've just kind of taken them everywhere as my general go-tos. Oh, it's a big Sharky. I've never noticed the big Sharky over here at the pool place. Oh, it's got the pufferfish too. This place is. How have I never noticed the shop? I guess I don't just hang out here.
Isn't that like Mualani's shop?
Yeah, I think it is her shop. She just sells replica Sharkies. But yeah. So Genshin is one of the ones I have more fun with because there's a lot of expression in how you play, and it's just fun to just hop on Sharky and go surfing around the world, or go exploring with the treasure compass, or stuff like that. It's just a fun time whenever I get on Genshin. There's nothing serious about Genshin, and it's why of the Hoyo games it's never left the active play pile after I come back and started playing 3 of them at the same time. It has never got the full back burner. It's got back burner for like a week or two when there's a lot of story going on in the other games that I have to catch up on. But it never, when all 3 are in active caught up play mode, it's never been back burnered because it's just fun to log on and play.
Ultimately, what you're saying is that it has entered into the MMO slot
Yeah, pretty much.
because we were betrayed by our MMO.
Pretty much. It is entered the long runner slot. ZZZ has not really entered the back burner slot. It has briefly when it was at its lowest point, but it does not take as much raw time to chew through stuff in ZZZ. It takes a lot of days to make progress in ZZZ, but it does not take a lot of raw time. Like just to do your dailies, it is the fastest, and it's not even
Unless you
close.
are planning on getting all of the things out of the Hollow Zero exploration.
Yeah, then you're gonna hate yourself. I did that. Don't do that. And also, the quest counter is bugged right now. It says 33 out of 36 in like chapter 2 or chapter 3. And there is no last mission to give you those last 3 combat pips. It doesn't exist. So it's just a bug, and it's been driving me nuts since the patch. Anyway, I guess that makes it so we can move on to ZZZ. So, system changes in ZZZ. Start with the simpler ones I can remember off the top of my head. UI improvements all over the place. Easier access to training guides, able to mark stuff for farming, condensing chips and the like into whatever the tier you need for the character you're upgrading for got easier. Cool. All that's necessary. All that's steadily being improved. Let's see, what else? The biggest system change has to do with combat. Now, we mentioned this last week, but there's a radical mechanical change that has shaken up the way teams are built and the way teams are played. And the viability of some characters is probably going to radically adjust it over the course of the next few weeks when it comes to people's tier placements. if they can get off the Miyabi hype train long enough to think about it for a second, which I'm starting to become dubious of. They seem very, very married to Fox Waifu. But the ability for every single character on your team to ult just changes the gameplay dynamic. The way you plan stuff out and the way you execute stuff in combat is radically different. I mentioned Kingi earlier, who's my main stunner. um, she has a gauge, and then normally the only way to fill this gauge up is to do the rapid mash of her basic attack button and let her just whap the ground, doing AoE electric damage and doing dodge counters and using her EX special attack. That's normally the only way to fill this gauge up. But because you can burst with her now, that's a full free gauge. And that's not a lot. It usually only takes 2 of those to get a full stun off on an enemy. So that's a free half of a stun bar and suppression built up for the entirety of the bar. That's huge.
Yeah, there was clearly sort of like how do I say, a black hole in the design logic surrounding ultimate design.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a character like, well, I guess the best example really is Chingy. This basically they've designed an alt that has a particular function, and then it turns out that nobody uses it. There's like no context for it to be used. And then as you move on a little bit, you get characters coming out like Caesar. Caesar's ult doesn't do anything functionally.
Yeah. It's just
And the reason why it doesn't do anything is that by the time she was being designed, they realized that actually nobody's ever going to hit that button, are they? It's basically useless. So there's basically nothing attached to it. It does have the only thing that you could say it has attached to it is it has an extra days multiplier on it for enemies that have shields, of which there are very few. So unless they decide that they're going to do a particular sheer defense where shielding is important, then she's not going to really have a role. Like her ult is basically, oh well, you can have a little bit of extra damage on a non-damaged character. Have fun. There's they were clearly had realized at that point, oh, okay, we designed ourselves into a corner with this one ult per team thing, and so let's just not design ults for support characters. Now they have to go back the opposite direction, and you can see that in the fact that, you know, characters like Haramasa generate they generate their field setup thing using their ult. Miyabi generates resources using her ult. Like the ults now do something, and there's a reason to actually press that button.
Yeah. So this radically changes the way you go through the combat encounter now. And in general, I think it's going to be a much healthier design space for the game because it gives them a whole extra button to work.
Yeah, because you now can, you know, have the ult play a role in your burst rotation for every character who has a rotation, as opposed to, okay, so we're just building towards this one button that we'll hit and then we'll go back to doing something else, because it's really not all that relevant. Like the ultimate is just not really important for a lot of characters. It's just a chunk of damage.
Yeah.
There's not many characters that really use it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, for Jane, it's like, yeah, Jane's is good for taking out small AoE nooblets, but it's mostly just a chunk of damage. Everybody and their mother was as soon as Bernice came out, because Bernice just can't stop herself from telling everybody how nice the snacks are, has to have her finger in every single team building decision. Everybody just used Bernice's ult as soon as she came out, and she was the only ult that got used.
Well, that's because Bernice's ult was unique in that her ult allows her to remain on the field fighting while you have brought in another character. Nobody else can really do that.
Yeah. And so, before Bernice, I would regularly use Jane's ult because while it's not a ton of damage, it's still really good anomaly build up, and it hits in an AoE. Okay, that's at least something. But as soon as Bernice came out, why would I do that when I can just have Bernice on the field fighting with Jane?
Yeah, there was a lot of other things in that space that never got hit. Like, for instance, Nicole's ult is basically Nicole's skill but slightly larger. So why would you ever prioritize that over something else?
So it allows you to make a whole lot more on the fly combat decisions. One that I run into a lot is with Lucy. During downtime in the fight, sometimes the pigs will run out, and I won't have enough EX charge to send out another big pig, but her ult's up. And guess what happens when you use her ult? You get the cheer on status and the pigs come out. So while you're waiting on the boss to finish transition, maybe you just have Lucy use her ult and kick the pig. And I've done this a lot. And it works out very nice. So yeah, looking forward to all the decisions that'll be made and was those changes roll out and go through. Makes Grace very, very good at holding onto her ult to bust shields, particularly electro shields, which are always a pain in the butt. But you can have Grace ready to go to bust an electro shield at the drop of a hat.
Is there some particular stage where that's a real bugbear?
There are bipedal, like they kind of look like the spider drones in Genshin, the spider ruin guards that creep along the ground, put a shield up in front of them.
Oh, those ones.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, they do slow your progress through the battle tower given half a chance.
yeah. So having
I'll just
Grace,
sit there while you beat on them forever.
yeah, and you either have to pop shock on them or you have to stun them. And if you've got Grace's ult ready to go, that's a guaranteed shock. So lots of utility there, even with the characters that currently exist, and it opens design space for future characters. So cool, awesome, love that change. Now, we talked about it a bit before. Miyabi is cracked. I hinted at this before. We'll do this while we talk about the new game mode, the new in-game game mode. So they have introduced the equivalent of Apocalyptic Shadow with a bit more focus on horizontal investment. So you need 3 teams. Well, I say 3 teams. One of them this time go around was literally just Miyabi for me, and I 3-starred that node.
I still think 3 teams is a bit stiff.
Yeah, it's ZZZ. I think it's a bit early to demand 3 teams. You could probably get to it eventually, but the fact of the matter is, we just haven't had long enough with the game for how many resources are out for where I think the normal person can do this. Somebody that has not invested money into the game basically and bought every battle pass is basically not going to be able to achieve. It's just too many resources. So we got that. Are you on top of my shop? We're on top of my shop.
I wasn't even looking at the screen. I was looking at the wiki.
Yeah. So the way this works is you're not allowed to duplicate. A character can only participate in one boss fight, and a Bang Boo can only participate in one boss fight. But you can pick from your entire roster and assign them as you go through. I will post
Leveling Bang Boos is hard.
do a whole lot of blitz modes. I will show you in live show chat the teams I used. My Zuyuan has fallen quite far behind, so that one did not go through. But yeah, the first team, my Ellen is not built at all. Ellen was backburnered almost immediately because I got her very early in the game and did not really invest in it until Zuyuan came out, and by then I was trying to build Zhu, and I did not make great progress until after King Yi came out, and King Yi became my priority because of how powerful and necessary stunners were at the time. Anomaly was not a thing until Jane became a character. So my first team, Rena, is there just to be a support. She's not able to do anything. She is not built at all. I think she has token. I think she is on set with wrong primary stats with her discs. They are technically the right set, but they are not at all correct. And the Sharkaboo is there just because I'm not allowed to repeat booze. And the first one is against the new boss, and Miyabi destroyed it. It was cutting it close. You need to get 20,000 points. I think I came out with like 20,150 with a solo Miyabi, but I did solo Miyabi it. The next one is my best team, which is Jane, Bernice, Lucy with the Big Wheel Boo. And I had like 40,000 points by the end of that one. It was not even close. That team was overkill. I could probably move Lucy onto the Marionette team to give that team a bit more of a boost. But yeah, it was a little overkill. Pompey does not like physical and fire, and that is a physical fire team. Marionettes, also known as the twin ballerinas. This boss has been radically altered every time it's made an appearance after this patch.
Everybody hates fighting it.
So the original rendition of this boss was, and I believe it's still this way in story mode, in the Notorious Hunt, and in Simulated Universe. But everywhere else, when you encounter ballerina twins now, it's now a new version of the boss. This one, you do not have to kill them both at the same time. There is only one ballerina that is active on field that is the one you need to kill, and it will occasionally summon its twin to do attacks in tandem with it that'll slightly out of sync and has nowhere near as much of the downtime garbage of the last ballerina twins. And this is just something you're going to notice about ZZZ. And we talked about a bit about this throughout the week. I don't think we mentioned it on the show. ZZZ is easily the game from HIYA that is taking fan feedback the most. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's a quirk of the people that are making it, or if that is just the game is not doing as well as some of the other products. Excuse me.
I don't know. It could be something even stranger. It could be like, well, we've got all of this money now that Genshin and Star Rail have earned us. We can try seeing what happens if we just listen to everything and just don't worry too much about sticking to the original roadmap, but just update it on the fly based on feedback. Like, they could have just made okay, so this is going to be the mission statement for this project going forward, just so that we can find out, does this actually work out better for us? Does it work out worse for us? Like, how does this actually go? Because, I mean, how many companies have actually tried it?
Yeah.
Just willy-nilly, completely scrapping things that they thought were good ideas just because people said they didn't like them.
Yeah,
Like, if you look at something like World of Warcraft, they cling to their bad ideas for years and years and years and years.
Here, it's like, people don't like ballerina twins? Okay, we'll remake the boss fight. People don't like Bang Boo TV? Okay, we'll remove it, make it optional, and then make a new Bang Boo TV. Like, that is an insane level of work to cut out that large a section of your video game and then redesign it while you're working on new content. So,
I mean, it's very easy to criticize gacha games because of the amount of money that they rake in and the amount of time they spend trying to bait you into spending money. But I mean, to some extent, HIYA are earning it at this point.
it's a big reason I've been more okay with spending money on ZZZ than any of the other ones, because they are demonstrating they are listening harder than any of the other games.
I don't think that there's anything that has been complained about in Star Rail that hasn't been addressed almost immediately.
Well, I haven't.
It's just not as highly visible because the game fits into a more conventional mold.
Yeah, I also don't follow it as closely as ZZZ, so I'm not as on the ground paying attention to the system mechanics in Star Rail. But ZZZ, I definitely am, and it's
like in the next Star Rail patch, they're just completely overhauling pure fiction because of the things that make it not quite work correctly.
Yeah.
Like this seems to be a policy going forward, and it's just the Genshin team that are dragging their feet. And there is a justification to drag your feet as well, because you've got to think about the difference in player composition, right? The ZZZ player base are HIYA faithful who you don't really need to care about because they are like going to play regardless because they are in it for the brand, and you've got your action game gacha players. And Star Rail has a similar case with people who are more focused on turn-based JRPG structure and so on. Like in the case of Genshin, they don't have a very well delineated player base. They've got every hick who picked up the game during COVID and didn't put it down. And a lot of those people are going to be normies, and normies hate change. Even if it's good change, they just don't like that it's change. So there's a certain amount of risk to making changes to Genshin that doesn't really exist in the other two, because the other two were games with a specific niche pitched towards a specific niche market, whereas Genshin was pitched at everybody.
Yeah. So so yeah. They are still coming out with quality of life stuff. They seem to have expedited the process with Natland because people seem to have been a little fed up with the Genshin team in the
Well, I think that a lot of the casuals are also falling away now, because if you've played a game for a certain number of years, or a lot of those people who are casuals will have turned into lifers at that point.
yeah.
So you can sort of transition away from a general player base to a gamer player base.
Yeah. But the rapid pace of ZZZ's adjustments that show how clearly they're looking at player feedback and responding to it makes me more okay with doing things like buying the battle pass or buying the occasional pack of
Well, it's
polychrome.
it's a rewarding good behavior thing, right?
Yeah.
Like
So
you want that. Like if you look at Honkai Impact Third, progress very, very slow in terms of QOL. They've started to pick up in the past like year or so, like quite dramatically, in fact. And that's because they want to poach players from other properties that have better QOL. If you look at Genshin, quite slow responses, generally speaking. They have a secondary incentive to slow their roll to avoid alienating non gamers who don't really understand change. If you look at Star Rail, much, much faster than Genshin. If you look at ZZZ, slightly accelerated pace again. Like this is like a company-wide progression that they're going across, not just an intra-game progression.
yeah, it's just in ZZZ we have seen radical and ginormous systematic changes almost every single patch. So if and because they're willing to do it so quickly this early in the game's life cycle and not stick by ideas that are just bad. Like,
Unless they're the Arpeggio fault guy.
yeah, I mean that they probably just feel bad for that guy at this point. I I, I
If
don't.
he was working on some other project, like if it was like a promotional browser game, that would be some sterling content.
Yeah, like get the marketing team to poach that guy and have him help
But
develop like the web
even
events.
if it was in Star Rail, it would have made more sense because the pace of the game is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the action game, the third person action game, the worst possible host for that type of content.
Yeah, you could have got away with it in Genshin better than you could have got away with it in ZCC. To Mulani Surf Shop, would you like to buy a Sharky? Why is the Sharky at the shop bigger than my Sharky?
Because you don't have to carry the shop one around everywhere.
Reinflate that Sharky. I wonder if that one can bite.
Well, you've got to sort of attract people to the store.
I guess so. Fish. Oh, my puffer fish. But yeah. So that's the newest in-game mode. It is definitely got the highest bar to entry because you do need to have either a fully constructed team or at least a couple of built characters to even have a shot at 3 stars on each team. Or Miyabi. She can do the
Well,
she can do the
built
first one.
Miyabi.
Yeah, built
You've got
Miyabi
to at
can do the
least be
first
able
one.
to bit.
Yeah, mine has was fairly decently geared. She hasn't hit that last crit break point, but she was still able to do it okay. If I was able to get her that last crit break point, she probably would have slaughtered it. But yeah, so that's where that in-game mode's at. It's nice. More in-game modes to play around with is always good. That's more rewards per cycle, and it gives us more something to think about when we're
Well,
putting characters
this is
together.
going to be trading off with another thing, isn't it?
Uh, if it is their replacement for the old
I
ambush
think
node,
that they're moving towards. It sounded like they're moving towards the Star Rail model, where each time they introduce a new one, it will be staggered with the old one. So now Star Rail, every 2 weeks you're replacing one of the three modes, and
okay,
I think that that's what they're moving towards with ZZZ as well.
okay. So I'm okay with it as it is right now. I do think it's a bit early to put it in. I think it could have waited a few more months.
If it's the thing, right? With the three teams, that's what it comes down to. Like, I think that this one should have been deployed third if they've got three modes in the in the oven. Like, you've got your one that's out, and then some other one, and this one. I think this should have been the third because I can't participate in
Yeah,
that sense.
it's gonna be really, yeah. This one needs level 60 characters at minimum, and it's just to even get in the door. It's gonna be Imaginarium Theater for a little bit for some people, but
I mean,
it
9 characters is more achievable than Imaginarium Theatre
and you technically can have throwaway slots.
if you've got Miyabi.
Yeah, if you got Miyabi, you can have throwaway slots, and really you're given about a slot of wiggle room in the other ones if the other two characters on the team are tailor built to beat that boss, like Bernice and Jade for Pop. So the barrier to entry can be lowered slightly. It doesn't feel as bad as Imaginarium Theater because it also doesn't have all the stupid element restrictions. It is
How
literally.
how long is the time limit on this anyway?
I believe it goes for the current one is going for 3 weeks.
Okay.
I would have to boot up ZZZ to double check.
Yeah, so I'm just a little bit mystified as to how you're supposed to how they expect the normal person to structure a team because you've got to be so invested to do in-game modes, and unless you were a 1.0 person, you're just not going to have these sort of resources. Like, I only have 3 max level bang boos, and 2 of them are electric because I've got Gulliver and I've got Plug Boo and I've got Red Mockus, but that's all. That's all that I've got built. I
I
have
was
like a half-built Butler, and I've got an unbuilt Shark Boo. That's it.
is FBI Boo Electro?
Yeah.
I thought it was physical for some reason.
No, he's electric. Because, like I said, he's built for the Yanagi Miyabi core.
Okay.
He builds electric anomaly and increases rate of electric anomaly build as well. Like, he's designed to be Yanagi's personal lackey.
Yeah. I think both of us are going to regret skipping Yanagi, but it is what it is. I overpulled on Bernice hard, so I did not have the resources to pull unless I wanted to go
If I
full
hadn't
whale.
skipped Yanagi, I wouldn't have made it to Miyabi because I had to go to Pity 3 times.
Yeah,
So in the
I
end, it made sense.
I would have had to go full whale if I wanted to get Yanagi. Um, but I loved Bernice too much. I couldn't not get her. Man, did they try and sell that girl super hard, and it
She's been
worked.
doing okay for me, even though I've got no unique W engine for her. She's still been doing work. I can still routinely womp the Nineveh without letting it get into another mode, provided that I haven't attached every single freaking debuff to it.
Yeah, the W engine makes it so you can tap into Bernice and have her hose down the enemy to get her juice back up on longer fights. That's not really relevant unless the fight goes over 3 minutes, and there are not a whole lot of fights to go. Or I guess if you're trying to Caesar your way through the fight.
Well, I mean, that's my go-to if I know that I can't survive because I'm going to take too much damage.
But yeah, Bernice has been a boon for the everything and making the game just infinitely more fun to play. I love both sub DPSing and off fielding with Bernice. Either she's enabling my primary character or she's playing tag team with them to rotate anomaly pops.
Her anomaly gen as an on-fielder is really poor, though, generally speaking, for an anomaly character.
Yeah, but you press and
And so
hold
she
down that hose button.
really shines when she's spending energy and being off-field. That's her main strength. Her actual tapping away at things is pretty grim.
Yeah, you're not going to build much anomaly with her basic combo. It's all going to be in her Kurikuru or her double hose. You're not double hosing her Kurikuri, and you're not building any anomaly. But it's still fun to tag her in and see how many enemies you can get lined up perfect in that double hose blast. And
Kurukuru pulls from the same resource as off-field damage, though, right?
yeah, so what I do is I usually do a Kurikuru and immediately go into double hose blast to rejuice it when I tag her in. So yeah, it's fun. I just really like the way she interacts with Jane and the way she interacts now with Miyabi. It's just a good fun anomaly swapping, and Bernice really did invigorate my desire to play the game a lot. Just makes the anomaly playstyle a lot of fun.
Because the snacks are real nice.
They are real nice. Cocktails, mixers, ice. I still think that's. I still hear furnace, furnace, furnace instead of burnice, burnice, burnice. Whenever the song goes on. Oh, Bernice. Okay. So that is those system changes. The next big system change is they have added a new simulated universe. It is literally simulated universe from HSR. This means you go in there with a team you select, and it has the divergent universe. Your characters will be auto leveled and geared if they are not already. When you're picking your team, as long as you own the character, you can take it. And you go in here, and the quirk with this one is some characters are given, and I don't know if they're eventually going to roll these out for all characters or just some characters on a set rotation are going to have buffs. It's like Biabi, Billy, and
Yanagi and one other.
yeah, one other 5-star limited. I think Ellen. That sounds right. But yeah,
From a marketing perspective, it would make more sense to do a rotation.
yeah. But yeah, so you go through, you select. You usually only want to take one of these limiteds, these powered up characters with you, because you're only allowed to select one buff at every rest point, and stacking them leads to better effects. Obviously, because they'll synergize together. But yeah, wonder if it makes Billy usable. I've not tried it with Billy, but yeah, the you go in and you select your first buff, and you select a gear, a piece of equipment that you will get stronger the more it'll be tuned to a particular type, a particular archetype. So you'll select kind of like you would a path you want to focus on this gear. And the more Resonia of that type you get, so either anomaly or crit or ultimate spam or whatever, that you rack up, this gear will level up and its effect will get more and more ridiculous.
Are the bonuses for the 4 that are not that are have got the special equipment, are they so large that you might as well not bother if you aren't picking one of those? Or is it just an extra?
They are colossal bonuses. It will probably be an uphill battle if you don't pick one. But I have done this at max difficulty, and on max difficulty, you might be hosed if you don't. Outside of max difficulty, you can probably get away without picking one. But yeah, it's got the same difficulty selection as Blitz mode, where you unlock more and more demerits you can apply to yourself to make it harder and increase the payout you get at the end. And the way it works is you're presented a branching path, and you can press on PlayStation controller. It's the touchpad. Press the touchpad button, and it pulls up a map. and it will show you the way through the simulated universe, and there'll be rest points, combat nodes, occurrence nodes, all the stuff in simulated universe you're used to seeing, and you can pick a path all the way to the rest point and the boss that that you want, and try to get as much as you can from it. And you'll beat the boss. You'll go to the next zone, do it again, get to the next boss, get to the next rest node, and do it again, and get to the final boss, and then you're done. It is literally a simulated universe run. So there isn't a whole lot to say about it. If you played HSR Simulated Universe, you're going to be right at home. You'll have to learn the new terminology, but that's about it. I'm not a super big fan of Simulated Universe in general. Um,
I spend a lot of time in simulated universe, like just tooling around, just to see how insane my numbers can get. Which
yeah,
is why I was able to just do all my farming today by just going alt 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 on every boss.
yeah. It doesn't have anything that lets you get quite that cracked that I saw yet, but not to say it doesn't exist. When you crank it up to the higher difficulties like I did, you're fighting with a
But
whole lot of powerful demerits.
so long as it doesn't have aventurine disease, where you actually can't play the highest level if you don't have a particular character.
Well, there at no point are you forced to take damage. You can just get good. So
That's real good. But yeah, I like when I was I had to repeat the whatchamacallit, the story mission, the last story mission. I had to repeat it to get the polychromes because the first time, because I don't play action games, so I couldn't read anything that was happening. It was just like seething madness of moving colors the first time
oh
round. So I took a lot of damage.
yeah, in the newest story mission set,
Yeah.
we'll get to
So
that next.
I had to repeat it because I was just like I was like, completely bamboozled by the amount of colors and lights I was seeing.
He does like his oranges. There's a lot of orange in that fight.
A lot of gangplank.
Yeah, he does not have scurvy. He has a whole lot of different issues. So let's talk about that's really it for the major new systems added to the game. There are a lot of minor changes all over the place too that will just take time to get used to. Things like you can pick any character to run around the city with. Though why you would run around as anybody but Bernice is beyond me. She's clearly best girl.
Um, they actually differ slightly in speed, with Ben being the slowest by a huge margin.
But
Also, if you pick somebody like Piper or Sokaku, and then you move up to the noodles stand
oh
between the stalls, and then you change to Ben, you can't get out.
oh, that's funny. Well, presumably you can just teleport away or turn back into Sokaku.
Yeah, I mean you can, but the whole reason that this feature is so late deployed was that Ben specifically caused so many bugs and problems that they couldn't launch with it.
Just exclude Ben. That's funny. But anyway, we have Bernice already, and we had her last patch, so why would you switch? But yeah, and yeah, there's just a ton of system changes like that all over the place. New additions, new modes, new stuff everywhere. The new event is a full-blown tower defense game, not game mode, full game. Somebody got the arpeggio fault guy, and he was mad they didn't like his last thing, so he went full retard again.
So he just unleashed the tism again.
It is a giant event, and it's all a thoroughly constructed tower defense game with bang boos. I'm like, oh my goodness, dude. At least we're not using the TV.
Yeah, but the problem is, when am I going to find time to play all these giant short-term events?
It's like, I get it. I know. Here's the thing with action game players: we don't mind doing the exact same goddamn thing over and over and over and over and over. It's okay. That's what we do. We are autists of the highest degree. We will be fine. Just let us play the action game. You don't have to invent all these quirky, weird game modes for us. I promise. I promise we'll be fine.
I haven't even done the freaking Genshin event yet. How am I going to find time for a whole game? There's a whole bunch of people on my social media feed have been saying that they've basically been doing nothing but playing the Genshin event over and over again because they really like it.
I haven't done it yet. So,
Nor have I. I haven't touched it. I've played earlier versions of it, but based on the screenshots in the tutorial, they've basically revamped it so much that it's not even recognizable.
yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at with the new features in ZZ. Let's talk about the story. We went through the last several patches all the way until the current story, basically introducing us to the current factions we have in the game. It showed us the Fuzz. It showed us the basic ones of Telebog Industries and Victoria Housekeeping and the Cunning Hares, and we had who was after the Fuzz? Sons of Caledon in the Outer Ring, and then we had Hand, who are your big deal Hollow Investigator team, who are all Turbo Autus. Every one of them on every single faction. There is nobody that is normal in this world.
I don't know. I think Ji-Yuan's pretty normal, all told.
I mean, she's probably the most normal, but I've done her story events, and she is just as she is autistic in the way that is socially inept. It's not the cute kind of autism with her. She just doesn't quite understand how to talk to people. She's just a little bit special. So the story opens up, bringing together a thread that we'd been following since 1.1, and that's after the ballet twins, we and the guy threatening to blow up the hollow section that had all the civilians in it for his construction company. He gets arrested, and then he escapes, and then we catch him and we keep him with the Sons of Caledon, who keep watch on him until we can figure out what the heck to do with him. And surprisingly, he doesn't get away. I guess he was just too scared of Bernice, or the snacks were too nice. He just couldn't leave.
Well, I think that the impression I got was that he thought it was more or less he might as well be guarded by people who don't want to kill him, than people he suspected might want to actually kill him.
Yeah. So he reveals what we'd been teased at before, with the head of the police and his secretary being the real masterminds of what's going on with the sacrifice, which we still don't know much about.
It's not his secretary. She's the head of like the sort of the council of all the biggest sort of corporate interests in New Eridu.
Okay.
Like she's a much bigger fish than Bringer is. Like Bringer only thinks that they're equals. She's a much bigger fish than that. She's probably one of the most powerful people in New Eridu.
Yeah. So they're the big bads, and so we go out to figure out what's going on, and trying to remember the exact series of events that goes on, because there's a lot of jumping around between the factions.
Well, basically, it kicks off with Nicole basically deciding that she's going to get Hand involved because they're the heaviest hitters that she has access to personally.
Right. And this goes about as well as any of Nicole's plans, and that Hand almost arrests everybody.
I mean, think about what that relationship was predicated on.
Yeah. She kind of stole something important from Miyabi, but she gave it back.
Steal it. It was probably a legitimate transaction.
Yeah. I believe that. I don't believe that. But we are, as we're being arrested by hand, and we're trying to deal with this situation. A whole bunch of dudes show up and start shooting at us. And finally, this I love that this actually was story relevant. Piper shows up in Steel Tusk, and we finally get to see what this truck can do. Turns out it's a pretty durable truck. It can take a lot of bullets. It cannot, however, take a rocket. So we get blasted off the road and are thrown into the hollow and wake up with separated from our group as a proxy with Miyabi there as the only one to help us navigate the hollow. And this leads us to a unique section of hollow gameplay. Because the proxy, from what I can tell, they have some ether resistance, but they're not at the level of the agents that we send into the
I
hollows.
think I think that their level of ether resistance seems to be roughly at the level of a normie, not much higher than that.
Yeah,
Like they're slightly high enough that they won't immediately turn into an ethereal, but they make clear pretty early on that there's a fairly broad sliding scale of ether resistance, and very few people are particularly high on it, even amongst people who do operate in hollows. And so yeah, they've clearly got only the minimum that they don't immediately have to panic if they go inside a hollow.
yeah. So it's a situation of we still need to get out of here as fast as we can, but we're not gonna turn into a holy monster immediately. And this leads us to our first new unique type of gameplay section that we hadn't seen before, where we actually control Belle inside the hollow and have to do little baby puzzles to clear the path for Miyabi to go do her Miyabi things. And I liked that we finally got to see Belle active in the story missions as Belle instead of just as Bangbu TV.
Or I guess as wise if you're one of those people.
Yeah, those people are Fern, and he's the only one.
Well, this is actually a little bit relevant to what was flooding my social media feed, but when we get there, I'll mention it.
Okay, so shenanigans happen in the Hollow. It's a bit rougher getting out than you think. And after convincing Miyabi not to arrest you, uh, after a fight, she tries to sheath her sword with some kind of ether goo on it, and it causes the sword to go out of control. And Belle has to help her sheath it and help her fix it so that it doesn't go out of control. And this helps the two bond a little bit. And so now Miyabi doesn't want to arrest you on sight as soon as you get out of the hollow, and is able to convince her friends that nah, she's all right. So
Well,
hand us
also technically speaking, you also kind of have blackmail material on her as well.
yeah, because we know part of the family secret. We'll learn the rest of it later. So we get back to New Eridu after resting up and back in random play, and Fuzz come knocking. Am I missing a spot in between the two? I feel like I'm missing something that happened in
No,
between.
that was after basically they go back to random play so that Belle can take some time to rest to recover from her corruption.
Right. So then the Fuzz show up.
But before the fuzz show up, the fairy comes under attack.
Oh right, Fairy gets whapped. So this is the first time in the main story where we don't have Fairy holding our hand, and from the point of entry in the Hollow, the neural implants or something get damaged in Belle's head. So Fairy hasn't been able to talk to us basically the whole time. So Belle's on her own, which I kind of get was to Fairy might have been able to solve a few of these problems way sooner, I guess, and having Fairy there
Well,
probably would have cluttered the cast a
fairy has
bit.
been. Well, more importantly, fairy. You don't want fairy there just in case there's something that you have portrayed previously in the story that could have been used as a Deus Ex Machina for something.
Yeah,
Because fairy's ability to find nearly anything would have trivialized a lot of the challenges that they face in the story.
yeah. If we could locate Bringer at all times and figure out where he's at.
Because
Thing,
remember, fairy can basically hijack any of New Eridu's systems that she feels like.
so they had to KO Fairy, So they knock her out, and so this means that we have to leave the TV on in the back while it does a full system reboot. Okay, now are the fuzz showing up?
Now the fuzz show up.
Now the fuzz show up, and the fuzz come knocking, and they're doing a routine inspection as ordered by the chief of police. And at the last second, before as they're opening the door, and poor little Aos they're quaking in his bamboo knees.
No, it's
Uh,
not Eos. It's number 6.
oh, number 6 is quaking. They look exactly the same.
They have different numbers on them.
They look exactly the same. But they we have our best fuzz, the whitest hipped Bangbu, who does not look exactly like all the other Bangbus. And Zuyuan show up and like, nah, don't worry, we got this one, and they send him away. I remember how the scene ends. I don't remember how it goes though in the lead up to it. At the end of it, Zuyuan is not very happy with us.
No, because she does demand an explanation, and the explanation is that you've basically been deceiving her.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently, according as Miyabi will spell out explicitly later, in case you're autistic enough not to have picked it up, she's actually a very sensitive person who gets very upset by this.
Yeah, so you have to give a very sensitive, there is no way in heck this story works for Wise explanation to Zuyuan. Because
Well, actually, it works better for Wise because Zhuan's reaction to you apologizing to her is basically as if you had just proposed to her. Like that doesn't actually make any sense for Belle. It would make sense for Wise because the way, like, if it was Wise that said it, then it falls exactly into the standard harem protagonist trope of the male lead being extremely sincere, but this being misinterpreted as a romantic overture, because that's the way that scene is actually written. And when Belle is in the scene, it doesn't make any sense why Juyuan immediately interprets Belle's profession of guaranteeing that she'll never lie to her ever again as being romantic.
Yeah,
The voiceover conveys that in the next voiced scene as well. So it actually doesn't really work very well with Belle.
This totally went right over my head if this actually is the way it went out.
That's why she couldn't speak. Why she couldn't speak clearly in the next scene, and her voice was all squeaky, is because she was still busy blue screening over being flirted with.
Yeah, I didn't get that read. Probably because in English they might have flubbed it up.
I've only ever experienced the story in Japanese, so I have no idea. I have no idea what the English one is like, especially since they said that half the characters are not going to have voices in English.
It was only Lycone.
Poor guy.
But
no, it actually, the scene in the Japanese at least, and in the way it's written, if I'm reading the subtitles as an interpretation of the delivery of the Japanese, it's definitely designed so that from Wise it would sound like it was like had romantic overtones, and Zhuan completely misinterprets it as in a profession of affection rather than just faith.
It came off to me as just Zuyuan having trouble processing, or not having trouble processing, but still processing what Bella told her, but working on forgiving her for it.
No, it's like she goes from 0 to luminescent blush in like 1 second flat in the Japanese.
It came off as taken aback, but not luminescent blush in the English.
But the voice delivery lands it definitely in luminescent blush territory in the very next scene, like a second later, because she's all sort of like squeaky and anxious. Oh boy, I need to take this.
All right. So I don't really know where to go without on Solo. So we will actually, this seems like a good time to cut to a break. So while he's on the telephone, I'm going to put us on the screen and mute the audio so we can go on a break. Here's the break screen. We will continue our story analysis when we return. And we're back.
Yes, I don't know exactly where you cut off, but yes, I had to take care of something for work. It was not a crisis, thankfully. It was somebody exercising due caution, which pleases me because it means they've learned to exercise due caution.
As you do. Hopefully. So that does not seem to be how they do at your workplace. It just seems like stuff catches on fire.
Well, mostly it catches on fire because I coddle people too much, and people get used to the idea that they can not pay attention because the manager will take care of it.
Yeah. So we were discussing ZZ's story, talking about Zhu Yuan being mad we lied to her.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I've,
I don't know what it's like in English. I can only give you my interpretation of the Japanese, and in my opinion, the Japanese voice actresses are all far more talented than the English ones. End of story. So I expect that not only that, but their ADRs are probably more talented as well.
yeah, if I didn't get a performance issue with Zhu Yuan ever, she's been one of the more okay ones. If there was an issue, would have been on the ADR end.
But that seems to be the case in a lot of dubbing productions. Cough, cough. Star Rail, cough.
Well, Star Rail has the double whammy of bad ADR and bad performances.
Yeah. It's just quite awful. And of course, then you've got, the Final Fantasy blaming everything on the ADR because it couldn't possibly be the Troon that they got to voice the biggest character.
Yeah, no.
When they did the redub, it was sort of grotesque how people were falling over themselves to say, see, look, it wasn't the voice actor after all.
It sounded worse.
Yeah, well, they were all pretending it sounded better because that way they could blame bad direction. But I mean, if you're going to go from spin to spine, I mean, it's not going to be
Oh,
better, is it?
that's so pretty over there at this time of day. Little waving uh phlogiston lines between the floating islands up there.
Anyway, the apology to Zhuan happens quite a bit later because Zhuan storms out after
Yeah,
the initial revelation.
yeah.
And this is the part where it shows something that a lot of people, even normally people who don't have any interesting takes, well, maybe this isn't an interesting take, but at least it's a take. The big difference in depiction between Wise and Bell in the scene that immediately follows. So both of them are animated quite well, but with very different tone. So the scene that you'll be familiar with, the one that I saw as well, is Belle sits down in her chair after the pressure is off and she tries to take a drink. Right? You
Mm-hmm.
remember the scene?
I remember this is ringing bells.
She
Yeah.
absolutely can't hold the cup still and water is going everywhere.
Oh yes, this.
Which is
Okay.
a really funny scene. But it's sort of like, so basically this is depicting that the pressure is offshore and Bella's trying to calm down, but her nerves are still jangling wildly. She's not calm at all. But the same scene is actually animated completely differently for Wise. Wise is a much more played straight scene of, you can see him sort of like slumping into his chair and then all of the tension just washes out of him and he actually does relax. Like he's calming down. It's a totally different scene to convey the same sort of message, but what it conveyed to most people that they commented on online, this was in my social media feed a lot over the past few days, is they are very obviously different characters with their own personalities, which is something that a lot of such games lack.
Yeah. So
I mean, there are definitely, for instance, there's definitely different personalities for say Stell and Kylus, but it all comes through by the cultural interpretation that the viewer or reader or audience places on a man saying this versus a woman saying this, because the things that they actually say are more or less the same, but the interpretation is different because of the context. This applies to all normal people in all traditional societies. It probably doesn't apply to the woke because they don't want it to. But yeah, so it's all in the interpretation. But in the case of ZZZ, they are just different people, and they make it very clear in the way that they tell the story.
Yeah. I feel like we skipped a scene. When does Miyabi get arrested?
Way, way later, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that happened immediately after the first hollow, if we
Because
had a bit of
this
time.
is immediately after the first hollow. Miyabi doesn't get arrested until you go looking for you locate Pearlman and form the plan to go after him. That happens after this scene. So after this scene,
Okay,
um, you
okay,
get
I
a
remember now.
you get a break point to do other things, and then Wise is like, okay, is it time to call everybody up and formulate a plan for tracking down where the kidnapped Pearlman is?
Right, right, right. Okay, that's it. Okay, so we have to go back in the hollow and find Perlman because during the crash he got separated and taken by the dude by the fuzz. The little mercs that the fuzz captain hired. What office is Ringer running for again?
Basically the sort of the high commissioner in charge of all law enforcement in the Yanis Quarter.
Okay.
So there's four quarters to New Eridu. Like New Eridu basically comprises all local civilization um, that is built up. That is to say, excluding the Outer Ring, and it's divided into four quarters. Each one has a different focus, but they're all extremely important and powerful. And the position that he's running for, commander in the Yanis Quarter, would basically give him control over the law as it exists throughout a quarter of the city of New Eridu.
Okay.
He would basically be all powerful within that scope.
So they've taken Perlman after the crash, and we have to go get him back because he's the one that's gonna uh tell us more about who's really in charge and get us the evidence we need to book Bringer because we can't just go to the fuzz with no evidence. They can't book him without proof that he's as crazy as they say he is because he's still in a position of power at the fuzz's office.
So the objective at this point is to get Pearlman to Bellabog,
Yeah.
because Pearlman mentions earlier that he hid all of the insurance that he got on Bringer and on his secretary, who was actually the key figure. He hid it amongst the construction contract documentation, which Bellabog now has.
So we gotta go get him. This means we got to mount a rescue operation. So
Where
uh
you'll have to play as Haramasa, among other things.
yeah. So uh we head out and with the hand people and there another faction there with us or is it just hand?
And are the only ones that go in. I can't. I think that they've got. I think they've got a Bangbu. I think they've got the. I think they've got Belbu with them. Eus,
Yeah.
but I'm not.
Bel-
I'm not sure exactly.
Bellaboo. So so they go and infiltrate one of the towers. I think was it the twin ballerinas where they locked up Roman?
They were based out of Ballerina Twins. That's where the paramilitaries that are working for Bringer were based.
Yeah, so we go bust in and notice the security is awfully light. But whatever, we bust through, we rescue Perlin, and after explosions and shenanigans, we bust out of the hollow. And then there's the fuzz as soon as we leave the hollow. Ringer and his paramilitary crew ready to just hold the whole everybody in.
And also the secretary is there in the background, although nobody mentions her presence.
Yeah. So how do we get out of this? Well, Miyabi and Yanagi just kind of offer Miyabi up as a sacrifice, and like, oh yeah, she did it. It was all her. aiding and abetting this.
Miyabi is the least convincing actor in the world. I don't know what it's like in their English, but
It
the,
is very not convincing on purpose. Oh, I threw him back in the hollow in a fit of rage. Oh no. So she chucks Perlman back into the hollow and just hands herself over. So this, because it turns out Miyabi is the one he actually wanted to get a hold of to begin with.
well, they haven't worked that out yet.
We haven't figured that out yet, but we're just kind of flabbergasted this actually works. Uh, and it turns out it's because Miyabi was the one he wanted to begin with.
Or more specifically, Miyabi's heirloom.
Yeah, her sword. So we go and we somehow dig Perlman back out and 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 begin trying to track down where the heck Bringer's going and formulate a rescue plan for Miyabi. And
Well, this is where they work out by asking. Zhu Yuan
yeah,
shows up when you're on the phone to Yanagi on their special line after they've gone back in to get a hold of Perlman again, and they ask to check if Perlman's got a mark on the back of his neck.
oh yeah, because he's got a tracker, so that's how they knew where they were.
That's that's how they knew. No, it's not how they knew where they were. It's how they knew that getting rid of Perlman was never the point.
Yeah, so that's that happens, and Zuyuan shows up, and Zuyuan is particularly motivated to get Miyabi back because it turns out they're best buddies.
She mentions that way back when you first meet her.
Yeah,
Actually, it's like something. It's a callback to much earlier in the story.
it's been a long week, and I'm having trouble recalling specifics of this story, let alone what happened many stories ago. But yeah, we go through,
And
and
Yanagi has a small meltdown.
yeah, just a bit. Uh, but the Zuyuan helps us get a plan of action together, and we formulate a way to both stop Bringer at the site and figure out where Miyabi is. And through this whole plan
But
formula,
Bringer's busy at this point. He's making his major electoral speech,
yeah,
meaning that the streets are all gridlocked
yep.
because
So
apparently it's like a Trump rally.
yeah, so we've got to find an alternate method of transportation, and Zuyuan's way of doing this is we'll just take the train.
No, it was actually Bell's idea to go through the hollow and take a train in the hollow to go to the location.
Yeah. So we are now on a scene that is going to be almost impossible to figure out what was all going on because we get it cut off halfway through.
Yeah, unless you just want to sort of stand on top of the train dodging ethereals.
Yeah, Zuyuan is not a very complicated character to play. She has a press and hold to shoot the big charge shots and a basic combo that gives her charge shots. That's as deep as she goes. And so accidentally killing those little hollows is very easy because it's just a baby. It's like the derp hollow in the belt and the Bernice trailer, like that tier of hollow that we have to fight on the choo choo train.
Yeah, these ethereals are not serious business ethereals.
And this whole thing is just supposed to be a discussion while we traverse the space to the location of where Bringer is.
Including an interesting conversation with Miyabi's father at one point.
Yeah, we do have to ring up Miyabi's dad, and after getting the runaround a little bit, we finally get in touch with her pops, who tells us the whole stick behind
But not before bragging extensively about how awesome his daughter is.
yeah. He is very much so a papa who loves his little girl. and he tells us the whole shtick behind the family heirloom and how powerful it is, and how it's very very important that sheath don't get damaged in any way, shape, or form because that sword has a bit of a mind of its own.
I do feel that even by the end of the story, they were pretty light on the detail and heavy on the innuendo.
Yeah, the specifics of
Like,
how that thing is juiced, I don't recall them ever elaborating on.
yeah, so we've got a few. There are a few dichotomies here. Number one, they are definitely framing this in the classic cursed sword motif. However, they don't go into any detail on exactly what is required for succession, but Miyabi makes it sound a lot like the blood sacrifice of a previous wielder is required to pass it on, or something like that. And on top of that, this all seems to be tied directly into ethereals or ether energy, but as far as anybody knows, there are no truly sentient ethereals.
Yeah, and this whole, as we'll get to experience very viscerally and emotionally later, very shortly actually. Uh, this thing's got some odd quirks for the setting so far, in how it can interact with its wielder. Like we don't really have a firm type of magic anything or spiritual anything set up yet.
But
Like
this
it,
is the HIYA, so there's literally no reason why there wouldn't be.
yeah, it's just we don't have anything explicit yet.
Yeah, different civilizations interpret these phenomena in different ways. Like, for instance, in Star Rail, you have Memoria, for instance, which could easily be interpreted as any number of other things in a more high fantasy part of the HIYA, like Genshin, for instance. Um, and likewise, for instance, apparently I haven't seen the scene in question yet, but apparently it's mentioned explicitly in Honkai Impact 3 that the Honkai exists everywhere, but in a lot of places it's just not called the Honkai,
Yeah,
which is basically an entropic force that tries to tear down humanity.
yeah. So
And in fact, there is a huge amount of overlap between the Honkai and the Ethereals.
yeah. So we still don't know if or how much ZZ is tied into the greater Honkai verse. Uh,
I think they've explicitly said that it is, that that is definitely part of the same universe, but they have not given any further detail.
yeah. So we hard cut shortly after this to Miyabi in the train car, or not the train car, the police car, and she is kicked out at the rally in the middle of a crowd of people, and they let her, and they find, how do they make her sword do what it does again?
They basically the secretary, who clearly knows more about the sword than she should, she draws it, she tosses the scabbard aside, and basically lets it fire up with its foxfire, and then basically puts it in her hand and shoves her out.
Yeah. So we get to go into Miyabi's head now and have a battle at the
So
center of the mind.
remember, Miyabi's father explicitly mentions nobody outside the family should ever handle that blade.
Yeah.
What contract they have is with the Hoshimis only.
Yeah. So whether that or the previous damage to the sheath, I don't know if which one caused it. Maybe her not being a member is what caused the flare up, or maybe it was the damage beforehand, and she
Well,
technically is
Bell
part of the
patches
family.
the damage. It's part of the scene in the Hollow, and that's basically what causes Bell to fall apart. Is that she invests all of her energy in trying to fix the sheath instead of trying not to die of cardiac arrest.
Yeah. So so either one of those could have done it. They could be setting up something with the secretary to have her have a tie to that family. That's why she could touch the sword at all.
I don't know.
I,
She seems more like some kind of crazy cultist to me at this point.
yeah, I'm not sure where they're going with that. But
She's is she not the one? I don't know if you've seen I don't remember where the scene is, whether it's an extra material or whether it's in the game, where Miyabi goes on the mission that gets her the title of Void Hunter.
I don't think it's in the
I
game.
th-
If it is, I don't
I
remember
think
it.
I think that secretary was actually involved as a sort of like a consultant in that mission, um, and basically was trying to get Miyabi to butt out because Section 6 didn't exist at this time.
Yeah. So I don't recall that happening, and I don't watch much extra for Hoyo vs. Game.
This is official Hoyo extra material about Miyabi's background, how she ended up as a Void Hunter, and how Section 6 got founded.
Okay. Yeah. So for the purposes of this story, though, uh, we go inside Miyabi's brain while her sword's going out of control, and she has to fight the sword and talk it down. And
Basically, she gives the sort of "times have changed, old man" speech.
how many times do we have to tell you this, old sword man? And her sword eventually is like, "All right, we'll see how this goes."
Well, basically, because it seems like she's probably the most competent swords master that the sword has ever actually had, and most of the other Hoshimis had to lean on its power to get any mileage out of it, but she doesn't need to.
Yeah. So so the sword approves and agrees to stop mind whammying her, basically, and that it'll work with her and see where this goes. And so it lets her out of the mind whammy. It turns out that she got bonked pretty quick, so she got KO'd and didn't actually chop up a whole bunch of people while the Foxfire was
Um,
going out of control.
yeah, Belenju basically somehow tackled her into the hollow. Uh, Somehow, it seems like that Bringer had managed to cause so much panic in his impromptu exit that it more or less went unnoticed that Miyabi got immediately tackled into a hollow.
So it worked out okay. We got Miyabi back under control, but she's a little tuckered out right now. But we still got a bringer to deal with. So we need to go make some phone calls and go to the port. So we make some phone calls and go to the port and be like, "Hey, dudes, we need to go catch a bad guy." And every one of our friends shows up and is like, "Okay, we're on board. You done solid by us. We'll help you go get the bad guy." And so
Well, the thing is, it's not like that. That's the way it normally works in shonen. But that's not what's actually happening here. Every single person involved in this has got an investment in the outcome.
yeah, I am.
Like if you look at um the Cunning Hares, like this is all their deal that they basically set up. And Nicole has been embroiled in this from the start because the only way that she can not end up having her kneecaps broken by debt collectors is if she stays on Phython's good side. And so she's helping them out. Um the Bellabog Industries people, whatever happened to Kalada's father is tied up in this sort of like grand scheme that was concocted by the same people who are doing this now. Because there is a direct overlap between what is happening here and Bringer's involvement in trying to cover up whatever had happened at the construction site where Kalada's father died. And if you look at Victoria Housekeeping, well, they are like closely tied to the Hoshimi family since they're sort of long-time clients. So everybody's got a reason to be there.
Yeah,
So rather than just like everybody showing up for their big damn heroes moment, they all are there for a reason, and that's not out of the blue. They've all arranged for this as well. I mean, the Sons of Caledon basically show up because they've been involved in all of this, and they're the most recently involved with the proxy siblings, so they're still in like active best buds mode. After all, without Belle, how would they have Cheesetopia?
the snacks would not be nearly as nice. But yeah, you can. I could see that with them. I did not.
Plus, they mention that everything that went down in the outer ring with the schism within Pompey's faction was actually orchestrated by Bringer.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so all that's nice and all. I was more caught in the emotional moment here of just we're actually gonna get everybody a shot to show up for the finale. When the story before had been worrying me, and that they were going to basically let some factions just sit out, and once they were done,
No, I
and I,
wasn't concerned about that because I had seen that this was where they were building to. They had been very careful to give everybody an investment in the main plot as it went along, rather than just having completely self-contained stories.
yeah, so yeah, we needed to get them all here so that we could uh have a part one finale. So this is good enough time as any to have everybody with a reason to be here show up, and we go punch Bringer.
It was,
Uh,
I guess, on the source at this point.
yeah, he gets juiced. First, he juices himself, and he turns into a phase one boss where you have to chase him down, and then he gets assistant juiced, extra juiced from the secretary lady, and he turns into a two-phase boss where Miyabi shows up so you can judgment nut during the second phase of the boss.
There were I overall I liked the set piece, the way it was put together. There were a couple of things I didn't like. Um, Number one, I did not like the second phase of the first phase, if you want to put it that way, where
Where we're-
it's just an arm that keeps sticking up out of the ground and then doing some stuff and then disappearing again.
Oh, I was
And
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
like I just felt like it was very hard to tell what you were supposed to be doing. There were very little in the way of clear tells for the directionality of attacks, and generally speaking, that there was no good way to feel like you're connecting with attacks because it was just this weird arm that kept appearing and disappearing. But you're still expected to damage it to a certain point in order to get out of that phase. And frankly, it was strictly inferior to the sort of the dynamism of all the other phases of the fight. And the other part that I really didn't like about it was where you're just running along and you've got to break a bunch of boxes and stuff, and they keep putting things that will auto target away from the boxes behind you,
The targeting
which
gremlins
that just drove me nuts.
during
It's
that
like you keep
phase.
trying to tell me to hurry up, and then the game mechanics, like the system of the game, prevents me from heading in the direction that I want
Yeah,
because enemies always get priority over objects in the targeting system.
yeah, I do remember targeting gremlins in that section, but I eventually figured out one of the characters has a dash that can just break all the boxes.
I see.
I forget which one it was, but yeah, you don't have to attack with that character.
I
But
I typically had somebody about to die at that point, so I didn't know whether or not there was a heal coming up, so I was just putting the person with the most health.
yeah, I was just dashing along and not even worrying about enemies or the hand. Very pretty up on these sky islands. Why are there toucans up here? Anyway,
Because on the
he
ground there is only one can.
yeah. So yeah, I did not take this story like most of these. I took it at a very emotional face value level, rather than trying to get any kind of serious read on it. And I have enjoyed the rest of the story much better that way. But and I took this one much the same, and I think it works if you do that. I do not know how much deep reading you can do into this, but the story overall, from beginning to end, does really good if you just take it at a surface level. I don't.
I don't really understand how you seem to think I'm not doing that.
No. It's just
I don't think there is anything. I don't think there is anything beyond surface level to the story.
yeah. What I'm
This is designed to be a very straightforward story in most respects, and I think that most people are trying to get more out of it than that are on the wrong track. And but although to be fair, most of the reason that they're on the wrong track is that they're spending most of their time trying to work out who is gay for who.
Yeah, no, it's it was a fun ride through it. The rest of it, the story kind of ends abruptly after the boss fight. But that's fine. That was a
Did
fine
you
stopping
read
point.
all of the notes on each of the characters?
I did. I don't. I don't recall any specific ones standing out to me, but I do remember a bunch of them being funny. Glad we covered this week because I must have been more tired than I thought going through this week. It's coming back to me slowly, but having trouble remembering specifics of what happened for this whole story, which is odd because I remember liking it a lot, but not. It's just not sticking as hard as I expected it to.
I just remember a lot of thinking, "Oh no, I'm going to have to switch in Haramaster and try and work out how to play him."
Yeah. So yeah, it was good. It's a nice little conclusion where everybody has their moments in the finale. You get a big credit scene at the end that kind of gives me leans into that statement I said before, where this kind of feels like a soft relaunch of the game, and that this is the end of a prologue, as it were.
Well, they've introduced now. This is the actual scheme that is in the background. Is that there's like some crazy cult. They've got some figure they revere, and they're trying to sort of like stimulate human evolution type of thing.
Yeah, and they have juice syringes they can
And
inject
this
into
juice
people.
somehow fundamentally has derived from Miyabi's sword. But the entity which is involved in all of this, the hand thing, was also present during the original crisis that crushed the old city.
Yeah. So there is one post everything scene. Uh,
Which I didn't really understand what was going on, TBH.
yeah. So the twins and Miyabi are back at Old Eridu at the gate, and they remember how betrayed Zuyuan was when they didn't tell him everything. And Miyabi clearly knows they're not telling everything, and she's about to just let it go and walk away. And then Bell stop.
Talking about the first post credit scene
Oh,
because there
okay.
are two post credit scenes.
Okay,
There's the
which one?
post credit scene where the twins go after Bringer by themselves, and then
Oh,
there's the second one where they meet at the memorial.
yeah. So Bringer drops a whole lot of hints that there's more to the twins than we know, than even the players aware of, and then he dies.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't really sure. Does he just die? Because there's an explosion, right? But that explosion doesn't instantly kill Bringer, and it seems not to affect the twins either. So was it something? It looked like, oh well, Bringer's going to launch an attack, one last gasp attack at the twins to rub them out because they're, number one, they've foiled his plans, and number two, he recognizes something unique about them as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's an explosion then after that, but it doesn't seem to actually affect the twins, but it does set off both of their ocular implants for
Yeah,
some reason. And
I
it's not clarified exactly what's going on, and then Bringer disappears. So where did the explosion come from? Was the explosion something Bringer created? Was somebody trying to destroy Bringer before Bringer could do something? Was Bringer destroyed by just exhausting his power? And if so, where did that power go? Why didn't it affect the twins? So it basically raises a whole bunch of questions about the twins, who they really are, what their backstory really is.
yeah. So the next post credit scene after that cuts to the twins in front of Old Eridu, and they meet up with Miyabi there. And after they're done with their business there, they're turning to leave, and Miyabi's about to just leave them, even though she suspects the twins are hiding something from her. And they're like,
She's been dropping hints heavily for the past two scenes.
yeah, like
That please just tell me, please.
like you need to be straight with me so I can help you out here. I can't do anything if I don't know anything, guys. You gotta give me something more to work with.
The twins both have the tism, so
And it takes all the way until the literal last second of the second post credit scene for Belle to go, okay, hang on, wait a minute. and then she lays it all out for our little autistic fox. And this means something to Miyabi, apparently, where she's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's gonna, I'll have to do some, do
Well,
s-
that's because this is a callback to the last time they replicated this arrangement,
yeah,
because they've been in this exact scene before, except that they weren't communicating at that point. And the twins are reminiscing about their late teacher, and Miyabi is reminiscing about how much she hates their late teacher because she holds her responsible for her mother's death.
hmm So the twins go on to tell about how they're positive their teacher is innocent.
And about how what they witnessed with Bringer is basically a close facsimile to what they witnessed at that time.
Yeah. So this gives Miyabi a lot to process, and she's like, I need to do some thinking. I need to talk to some people. I'll get back to you.
You take my tism pills.
Yeah, and so she pieces out after that, and that's where the story actually ends. And that's where we're left off.
So
Except for
is this like finale 1.0 basically?
that's what it feels like. It
Like
feels,
the 1.0 series. So Mondstadt is now finished.
yeah, this feels very much like, okay, we beat Fantilia. Or maybe not Fantilia, but what's her face on Billabong. um Obviously we don't know where they're going yet with the story. Um I probably need to rewatch this story, which thankfully this game allows you to do.
Which
Um,
is a deep and abiding frustration to me that the other two games don't, and I put it in every single feedback form.
yeah, because I'm quite bothered by just how quickly the specifics of this story have left my brain.
Perhaps you're not autistic enough.
It's possible. I remember enjoying my time with the story.
I'm quite bothered by how much detail I remember it in because I was smashed at the time. So maybe it just uploaded to a special area of my brain where it didn't have to pass through the rest of the processing.
Yeah, I'm very bothered by a story I like and just not sticking with me at all for some reason. This is driving me insane. Which I don't know if that's an indictment of the story or not, or if it's just a facet of the headspace I was in when I watched it that I did not process at the time. But yeah, it is despite my lack of recollection of the specifics, I do recommend going through it. It was a good time. So, and that's pretty
I'm I'm
much
I'm sort of wondering where they will go going forward. Like in Genshin, you go to another country. In Star Rail, you go to another planet. Where did they go in ZZZ?
probably to another faction because we know we do get a post campaign mini date with
The thing,
with your girl.
the reason I mentioned that though is because what the function of going to another planet or going to another country does. This serves a very important narrative function that Tite Kubo never mastered. It culls your cast.
Yeah.
Because if they stay in New Eridu forever, then they never have to shelve any characters for narrative reasons. If they do stay in New Eridu and they don't shelve characters, the cast will become bloated very quickly. If they do stay in New Eridu and they do shelve characters, then you have to constantly explain why these bosom buddies suddenly are no longer around all the time.
Well, so far with the factions we've got, aside from Hand, who can probably be anywhere whenever they want to, and the Cunning Hares are the Cunning Hares, everybody else has a legitimate reason not to get involved with every little thing the proxies are doing. Like Victoria Housekeeping has jobs to do. Bellabog Industries supposedly has to be building stuff.
Well, the thing is, there are problems with that, and that the thing is that Kaleda has made very clear that she wants to maintain close ties with the managers, and Victoria Housekeeping have, unfortunately for narrative purposes, have demonstrated that they are willing to jump at the call every time Belle gives them a phone call.
Yeah,
Like, they've already demonstrated that they don't need a reason to get involved. All that Belle needs to do is ask, and they'll be right there. There's nothing really obstructing it. Like, if there's a big scrap happening and they don't invite Caesar, Caesar will probably be offended. Like, for a narrative perspective. So there's not really a good reason for them not to be involved. And so they kind of need to, the safest narrative way to basically get characters to take a back seat is to have the next arc a very narrow character focus arc, so that you aren't thinking about looking outside the broader scope. So instead of constantly introducing entire factions of characters every patch, just basically slow your burn a little bit and follow a more linear path throughout the next story chapter, so that the mode of thinking that you bring to it is less broad and more deep.
yeah. I don't. I have it. How do I put it? I'm
Because
not
it's one
sure.
thing to introduce a new character as you run into a new character. It's quite another to introduce an entire corporation of new characters every time you have a new story event. Because
Yeah,
it's not like, oh well, they met Caesar and Caesar's friend when they visited the Outer Ring. No, they met Caesar and Bernice and Lucy and Lyta and all of the other hangers on out there and Piper and so on and so
I was about
forth.
to
They
say
met
you
all
forgot
these
your
characters.
girl.
Yeah,
Got
well,
your
I mean, the
girl.
thing is that there's a mental block there that is trying to cause me to forget about her. But
Her truck finally
they
got screen time.
they're not like introducing a couple new characters. Like, if you look for instance at the Trailblazers progress through Penacony, you run into one character, and then you run into one character, and then you want to run into one character, and you encounter each of them in the course of a linear story. And even if they've got ties to extant factions, that's not really the overriding influence on their position in the story. But for all the factions introduced so far in ZZZ, that is their overriding position in the story. So Victoria Housekeeping first and individuals second. Bellabog Industries are Bellabog Industries first and individuals second. Same for the cunning hairs. Same for the hand people and the public security people. Like, they are introduced as these are the members of an organization, not these are the individuals. Like in Penacony, you are introduced sequentially to the likes of Black Swan and Misha and Acheron and I suppose Sparkle and Gallagher and so on and so forth. You meet these individuals as a matter of coincidence as you move through the story. You don't meet companies, which is what they've done so far in ZZZ.
Yeah, they're gonna have trouble because they don't have a real option with the structure of the game right now to set up a brand new hub for the people to move to. Because regardless of how many new cities they put in, new areas to go to, every single person identifies random play as the hub area.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying that storytelling might take a different tack next time. Might take a more narrow and personal view rather than a let's introduce you to like major forces moving within the city. But the other thing to remember is that everything that has happened so far has been in the Yanis Quarter.
Yeah,
And we know that at the end, Bringer was trying to escape to the Throne Quarter. So there are definitely big segments to the city, and you could, temporarily operate out of one or another. Um, but and they've got the mobile HDD on their side.
they
You
do
haven't got this chest
here,
right here.
up or
But
down.
I don't know. I don't know what tier you're on.
I went back to the city,
I'm in the sky still.
up in the sky.
But yeah, so I think that that it's probably also they're going to eventually reach the point where they're trying to slow their roll anyway, because you have to also remember that the objective of 1.0 through to the end of 1.x is going to also be to introduce the launch cast. So they have to bring heaps of people in as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas from now on, they only actually need to introduce a couple people every patch type of thing. They're not obliged to bring in heaps and heaps and heaps of people.
Random.
Because you don't have eyes.
Not like I can turn these pyro sigils in.
One day you will.
Let's check the Mayan calendar, see how many pyro sigils we're up to. Oh, I can't check it in multiplayer. Back to the people.
Yeah, regardless, it was a good lark. It got off to a roaring start, and it came to a satisfying conclusion. And I guess we'll see where they go from here.
Yeah. I
I presume there's going to be a couple of sort of like side stories and denouement arcs that follow on like they do in HIYA games typically.
So for 4.0 or 1.4 to 1.5, it's looking like it's going to be a long haul because where not a whole lot's going to happen because they seem to have blown their development load here and have gone so far as to put Haramasa and Miyabi on the same banner at the same time with
I
no
think
3-week break.
I think that this is mainly likely to be a commercial strategy, and it's probably going to be based on distribution of revenues throughout the course of a particular period. Remember, this is going to be crossing across the end of the year, which adds additional financial concerns as far as the way you tally earnings for a particular section of time. They've done the experiment in the past at this time of year using Doctor Ratio, so they know what the numbers look like if you do it differently. So this is probably a combination of accounting plus data gathering plus marketing.
So either way, the end result for the player is going to be we're going to be stuck with the current version of the game for about 6 weeks.
But they also made sure that they've already drip marketed the next two characters.
Yep.
So that people have got something to anticipate still.
Yep, definitely.
And I would guess that those two characters are probably going to be part of a side story type epilogue for this particular cycle, rather than the beginning of a new story.
After the main story finishes, you effectively do the intro bit of that story with your waifu.
Yeah, like I said, I just did exactly the main story and only that, just so that you wouldn't have to zip your lips this week.
Yeah, so there's that. You haven't done it yet, but Haramasa's story is also in the game. I think it's very good.
Yeah, that the corollary material hasn't been very explicit about what his dealio is. It's basically seems to imply that he's the residue of an experiment that was conducted trying to introduce ethereal elements to humans.
Yeah, it's a bit more specific than that when it gets into the story, but his story and the past he goes into, they do a much better job with him than I think any of the other main characters and their story quests. And really
Which seems
going
very
into
Genshin, really.
yeah,
Like, if you remember the early Genshin ones were like, ugh.
yeah, he
And it
is.
wasn't just about the production values either. It was like they were actually kind of meaningless stories early on.
Yeah, they did not have a handle on who these characters were yet, how they wanted to weave them into the world. They seem to have figured it out with Haramasa. Like it is a country mile better than any of the other ones before. If I'm being blunt about it.
For some reason, Rena's one really sticks out to me as being an example of telling us precisely nothing.
Because we don't learn anything about her other than she was rescued as a baby.
She has done every job in the world and is also qualified to do everything except cook. and knows everybody,
and she is a member of the Turbo Otis community in that world. Yes,
along with everybody else in that world.
yes. But 4.0 overall or 1.4 overall, I think it's a huge step in the right direction for ZZ. I think their gameplay additions, their gameplay improvements. We can nitpick like the horizontal investment requirements for the new game mode, or how they still haven't come up with a way to alleviate the burden on elemental chips, or reservations about where some parts of the story may go or whatever. But overall, they're responding incredibly quickly to player feedback and putting legitimate effort into putting more content into the. So I'm okay with giving a full throated recommendation to Z now, whereas I was hesitant before. Also, the snacks are real nice. And that's all I got for ZZZ. I played no single player games this week. Genshin I already mentioned before, the exploration, Star Rails, and farm mode, and the ate all my video game time this week.
I had all my free time eaten up by the airport, so I haven't done anything. And I haven't really seen anything discussed either that I think is really worth talking about. For some reason, a lot of people seem to be talking rather excessively about Path of Exile, which for a beta, I don't think is really. Eh,
I get that the first game
eh.
had a big install base and everybody was looking forward to Path of Exile too, but I'm not paying $30 for a buy into a beta. Not happening.
You gonna buy into East versus Trails in the Sky?
Hey, if the remaster's good enough and it looks like a fun lark for an afternoon, it's like $15 or something. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think I've really seen anybody talk about much of anything. Like it all seems rather bland. I guess they blew everything that they had to go. That they had on the go with the Game Awards, and after that, it's pretty much just everybody's scrambling for stuff to talk about, because pretty much everything talked about this week was just all old stuff, like more talking about that guy who got that, the whatchamacallit, the 10-cent scout that pretended to be a normie at the Game Awards.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like those stories have just rolled on into this week, even though they're not really big click pullers. So I think that there is actually a dearth of news available at the moment.
yeah. Nothing major has crossed my feed aside from more HIYA leaks about the upcoming Genshin stuff. Probably just gonna scrap the hold for pulls for multiple weeks, because I thought they would line up a bit better with the show on Mavwika. And we're not sure where Fern's at or if he has any pulls saved. Maybe I'll record my pulls. And
I don't think Fern saves pulls. I think Fern pulls when Fern has primogems.
yeah, so Fern may do his on the show, but I think we scrapped the Mavwika save plan for the show, because I expected it to happen the week we came back, not the an entire week and a half before we came back. My schedule just got all kinds of out of whack when I was figuring dates for stuff.
Yeah, it's what, on the 1st or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in 9 days. So she'll have been out for a whole week and a half, and I figure we'll want to start building her the week she comes out.
I only have a week and a half to find a elemental mastery headpiece. How?
You got that resin to craft with?
Uh,
I
have
mean,
to file a whole bunch of stuff into the grinder, I think.
I have no custom crafting gear left in ZZZ, because I blow it all as soon as a big character comes out to for their difficult pieces to get them online right away.
Oh, on ZZZ, I think I've got like 9 calibrators at the moment or something like that.
Yeah, I just am not. The resources I need in that game are too high for me to waste waste battery on the stupid drive disk nodes. Oh, the new simulated
Speed
universe.
clearer, speed clearing thing.
Yeah, the simulated universe thing, the new mode. At progression points throughout the normal 1 to 90 level up process, you'll get tickets. About once every 10 levels, you'll get a ticket. And you can just dump this into any node you want at no battery cost and get the drops from it.
Remember what they took from us. Do you know who else had tickets
I know.
that allowed you to just claim things?
I know.
Remember what they took from us?
I've already posted the GIF. Have I posted? Hold on. I don't know if I've shared this in live show chat before. But just so I never forget, at my desk I have a old leather with Crowder mug that I keep my my link. I keep my pens and my scissors and all my office miscellaneous stuff in. And it keeps getting kidnapped. As is wont to do when your stuff of that nature is in an accessible spot in an office. So I have found guardians for it that will let me never forget. They are protecting my my pens and pencils and my scissors and the like from any ne'er do wells that would come and steal them.
By which you mean the opossum.
Yes, I
Or I
need
guess
those
your
pins.
sister.
I need those pins. Dang it! So the Gourmet Guild is on watch, keeping them safe when I'm not.
People don't take my pens ever since I switched to using a fountain pen because they're like, ugh, can't use this.
Yeah, I have ballpoint pens. I have styluses. I have clicky pens. I have scissors. I have big nice fabric scissors in there that'll cut through anything. Please don't steal my scissors. Need all
Ugh,
that.
the worst thing about that was one of the worst things about flatting was the fact that I couldn't keep a pair of scissors because people would take them and use them on any old crap, and then when I get them back, they'll be full of dings and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. If you get near them, maybe Miyako's protecting them too, and you'll be turned into pudding.
I caught a flatmate once using my scissors to do freaking bodywork on his car.
What?
He was using it to remove a windshield, I think.
Why?
I don't know.
We couldn't buy his own scissors?
No. He tried to steal my wok to turn into a parabolic antenna.
What?
When I told him, no, that's retarded, you can't do that, this is mine, and what's more, it's already like 25 years old and is a family heirloom, sort of thing. He didn't seem to understand that I didn't want him to turn my wok into a parabolic antenna. He's like, why wouldn't you want me to do that? He had the tism. Or at least he had some kind of tism.
That sounds like a very unique flavor of tism. So yes, I'm looking forward to where ZZZ goes though. Hopefully they keep up the clip, and we'll report back on it next year when new content comes out for it, and we'll probably do our Mob Week pulls off stream when she comes out and begin working on her. And as me and Vol will still have to do our trounce domains at the end of every week. I'm not going out of town this holiday season. So for both New Year's and Christmas, I will be in town, not traveling, and we'll be here around on the Discord if listeners that happen to be around and want to make an appearance.
Incidentally, how is the bringer fight realized in a farming context? Because I'm sure they don't make you play the whole story sequence every time.
No, you start from the you do phase 1, and then at the end of it, he does a special transition animation where he's invulnerable briefly, and then immediately after he becomes attackable, you usually have enough time to shoot like a Lucy pig at him, and then he goes and summons a giant hand, and if you do enough damage to the hand to get it killed before the attack goes off, he'll collapse and you'll get a free damage phase. Otherwise, you got to dodge his big sword swipe, uh, FU move. And after that, it's phase 2 as normal.
Right.
So yeah, if you have Miyabi, just Judgment Nut. There are gonna be people that hear us say that, and I say it just like totally nonchalantly, and they're not gonna have a clue what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. The same way nobody has a clue if you start laughing at lawn chairs for no reason.
The stupid white plastic lawn chair has become iconic. I
It's
have not
something anyway.
I have not played Wuthering Waves, but the fact that there's a lawn chair reference almost made me download the game by itself. If I did not already have all 3 HoYo main games going, I might have given it a shot. All right, folks. We will see you next week. Sayonara. Not next week. Not the next week either. The week after. So I will give you a firm date on when we will be back. If I can tab over to my calendar. Not the weekend of 28th, 29th, not the weekend of the 4th or the 5th. We won't be back until the 11th to the 12th, following our 2-week break. Because that's just kind of how things fall this time. Maybe next Christmas season we'll do a bit of adjustment there to get us back to normal, because I think we skipped 4 a week. Wow. Probably from me taking over the schedule and not paying attention. So all right then. We will see you on the weekend of